What if Naruto awakens a bloodline in the forest of death?
What do you mean by that?
Naruto knew why he wasn't somebody who would rally to a teammate's side just because they were a group he had fought for glory, for pride, and for a childish crush, not for any team. Maybe he wouldn't have cared if nobody had ever told him who or what he was. Now he knew all of that, and it made him feel equally proud and confused. His parents had fought for a cause. His father had become one of the greatest heroes in the history of the Leaf, for sacrificing himself to save the village, for making the hardest decision Naruto could conceive, sacrificing his own son to seal away the Nine Tails. What had Naruto ever done? Why was it so important to him to become Hokage? Recognition, glory, fame. What difference did that make in the end? What could it do to help someone else? The Hokages didn't have their faces carved on the side of a mountain just because they'd been popular or famous. They were there because they'd made the tough choices for the good of their team, the good of the Leaf. That was what it meant to carry the title of Hokage. Naruto knew he didn't even come close to matching such dedication. Now more than ever, Naruto knew he needed to pass the Chunin exam and advance a rank, not simply to get closer to his dream, but to leave Sasuke and Sakura behind. Apart, they might have gotten along, but they would never truly be able to cooperate as a team. Staying together would do nothing
Emotional, damn it!
but hold them all back from growing and improving. As much as he hated Sasuke and was tired of Sakura, Naruto knew the Leaf would be better if they got stronger too. After all, wasn't the job of a Hokage to make his village great? Of all people, it had been Ino who had shown him the way. The son of the fourth Hokage looked down at her still fighting Sakura and made the blonde girl a silent, grateful promise. "I'm not what you think I am, Ino, but someday I will be. I'll make myself worthy of the respect you showed me. Count on it." Before then, though, he was still Sakura's teammate, and he had a job to do no matter how he felt about her. Now, come on, Sakura, I know you're not just gonna give in so easily. You can do it. Sakura still couldn't hear Naruto's words, but they helped her anyway. One of the memory doors tugged at her as she passed the knob, drawing her in. It could have been a trap, but she was beyond caring. Throwing the door open, she watched the memory unfold. The forest of death surrounded her as she saw herself rush at Zaku repeatedly using Kawarimi no Jutsu. Ino laughed as they watched the events happen again. "So sorry, Sakura, I guess you'll just have to watch yourself screw up again." "Oh really?" Sakura smiled, looking at herself fight the sound. "Nin, you don't get it, Ino. You're the one who just made the mistake." She couldn't really fault Ino. Only Sakura would have known that this moment had been one of the proudest of her life. She had made a decision to show that she was worth something and had proved it by tricking Zaku. Sure, she had taken a beating, but shed bought time for Ino and her team to get into place. You don't have to win a big victory to make it count, Ino. Sometimes the tiniest thing can make you feel just as good about yourself. Well, I hope you enjoyed whatever little moment you just had, because now I'm shutting you out." Sakura grinned for the first time in what felt like hours. Ino could try to block off her memories again, but she was too late. Something inside of Sakura, shoved aside by the Ino's dream weaver, had finally risen to the occasion. "The hell you will!" Ino watched, stunned, as every door in the hallway burst open at once, shattering into splinters. The Sakura that had stood before her disappeared, and a giant version of her opponent emerged from the darkness, eyes blazing with rage. She had felt something huge fighting to get out when Shed begun the Dream Weaver, but Ino had thought it was just the way anyone's mind would react, fighting off her control. Nothing Shed ever known about Sakura would have suggested the girl had a split personality. If anything, she's always had a one-track mind. Just what the hell are you, Sakura? It wasn't something she had the time to think about. This new Sakura had just broken through every one of her memory blocks and was now trying to find Ino, looking around with that same angry expression. She could have beaten the wimpy, insecure Sakura, but this one would be a pain in the butt. "Forget it, I'm getting out and taking my chances on a normal fight." Shikamaru was still scratching his head, trying to figure out what was going on when he saw Ino's hands move into the release seal for her normal jutsu. As they came together, the band of energy connecting the two girls vanished. Just as he was about to ask Asuma another question, Sakura answered it for him. "Nice try, Ino, but if you thought I was just gonna roll over and let you mess with my memories, you've got another thing coming." As soon as he heard it, everything clicked into place in Shikamaru's mind. He heard Asuma chuckle behind him and turned around to see his sensei clap a hand down on his shoulder. "So what have you learned about Ino's new attack? We could all use an explanation." "I ain't really sure I get it," Shikamaru muttered, "but I think she took all that stuff we learned at the academy and made it work for her when Naruto beat Kiba." The lesson he was going off of was that the hand seals are just a way to help you focus your chakra for the technique you're gonna do. Ino's normal attack takes control of everything in the target's body so that she can control it from within. My attack lets me control and shape my shadow, so she must have thought the seal helps me with it. If you combine finer control with the Shintenshin, I guess that means you can fine-tune the attack to control specific things. Ino just happened to choose memories, I guess. Asuma nodded, looking down at Ino, readying herself to fight again. Regardless of how this fight ends up, Ino set a good example for you and Choji. I expect you to follow it. When you get down there, follow Ino's lead. For the first time in a very long while, Shikamaru actually found himself wanting to do just that. After what she'd just done, the least he could do was try and show her head gotten the message. Ino and Sakura were back to being silent again, each waiting for the other to make the first move. Ino wasn't looking forward to it, staying firmly planted in a defensive stance. Good to get the new technique working, but I haven't practiced it enough yet. It takes too much chakra out of me to control things like this, and that rope trick didn't help. She had enough energy left in her for one good exchange of blows, and that was about it. At this rate, there was no way she could beat Sakura, which means the only thing I can do is try to go for a draw. It sucked, but damned if she was gonna let Sakura get away with another undeserved victory just because of that split personality. Let's end it. Sakura, one last shot, and it's over. Either way, you asked for it, Ino. For all the angry words and bad memories the two had traded during the fight, it would end not with a cry or a scream, but with two punches, each girl connecting with the other's jaw. When the dust settled, neither got up. Hayate watched them both for a while, and then raised his hands. Neither fighter is able to continue, therefore the match is a draw, and neither advances. Naruto clapped a hand to his forehead, and shook his head, half smiling. It looks like we both have a ways to go before we reach our goals. Ino, hope you don't quit just because you're out of the exam. As for
nice
him, there was no need for him to cheer on anyone else now. The next time he and Sasuke met, they might well be opponents competing for promotion. Naruto's only job now was to train himself and get stronger, whether his opponent was that jerk Niji Sasuke or even that baggy-eyed sand kid. The finals would be a tough battle. Plucking Itachi off his shoulders, Naruto game the ferret a searching look. I've got a lot of training coming up, Itachi, and I know you hate being bored. Wouldn't blame you if you took some time off to go and do whatever a ferret does while I'm busy. The ferret snorted, nose wrinkling and whiskers waving. With you around, nothing's ever boring. Naruto sides, we still gotta meet all the tribal leaders. Wait till you meet Lord Yama, the boss ferret. You'll have a great time. Why, he's strong. Itachi shrugged. Nah, he'll be the easiest summon you ever got. Anybody who feeds Lord Yama a decent meal can get a favor from him, so I'm thinking if you buy him a couple of big bowls of something, maybe ramen. Hell, do whatever you want. Naruto frowned. Doesn't that seem a little too easy? Well, us ferrets are scavengers. We take what we can get. If somebody comes along and gives us a present, it's like we hit the jackpot. I'll take your word for it, Naruto said, leaning out over the rail and looking down. But before I meet any more animals, Eve got to learn how to summon stuff first. Ain't like there's a whole lot of summoning masters running around the village. You know well who you gonna learn from then? Naruto just grinned. Oh, Eve got a good idea. Who might know a certain perverted, always late Jounin. That's who. Actually getting to talk to Kakashi was easier said than done, as Naruto discovered the copy ninja had finally returned to the arena after Sakura and Ino's match, but had come back without Sasuke, and was so distracted even Itachi climbing up to his shoulder couldn't get his attention. He wanted to be mature about it, but Naruto was a little ticked off by the time the preliminary matches were over, after seeing what Gaara of the desert had managed to do to Rock Lee. Despite the thick-browed Genin's best efforts, Naruto knew he had to learn how to summon things, and fast, if he was going to have any shot of surviving the tournament the third Hokage had set up. After all, he was up against Neji first. The thought alone was enough to make him nervous, even if he was hellbent on beating down Hinata's cousin. I don't get it, Naruto. Didn't you just tell me you wanted out of your team? Why go right back for help? It's one thing to say it, he shrugged, but Kakashi-sensei's never done anything to me that would make me think any less of him. It's Sasuke and Sakura Eve got problems dealing with. Besides, I think it would kind of disappoint Kakashi-sensei if I just up and left. You know, hey, it's your call, but if you're gonna consider taking a step as big as you make it out to be, it's usually best to just go ahead and do it if you think that's best. Otherwise, you're never gonna get anything done. The ferret had a point if he was really sure that leaving the team was
What do you mean by that?
such a good idea. Why hadn't he done it yet? 5 minutes later, the spiky-haired boy received the answer to that very question. What do you mean you can't train me? Is it that you can't, or that you want? Naruto had just made Leaf Village history by leaving the ever-talkative Hitaki Kakashi completely speechless, but he was in no mood to enjoy the moment. The copy ninja was the only person in the village he knew who might have had any idea how to summon creatures to battle, except maybe the third, and Naruto knew the Hokage was way too busy to train him. But as for Kakashi, Naruto had a pretty good idea where his sensei's time would be going, and he wasn't happy. Not so much because Kakashi wouldn't teach him how to summon stuff. He wasn't even sure the copy ninja knew how, since the Sharingan couldn't copy summoning jutsus. To put it bluntly, Naruto was getting sick and tired of being a second-class citizen compared to Sasuke, whether it was in popularity, talent, or otherwise. Had just about enough of not being good enough for anyone. But before he could say anything, Kakashi spoke. Now Naruto, it's not like you can't train with someone else and do something different. In fact, Eve already lined up a teacher for you who's much more reliable than me. Naruto felt his hopes rise a bit hearing his sensei's words. So who is it? Kakashi pointed a finger behind Naruto, who turned and stopped cold. Him of all the people for Kakashi to call on, the copy ninja had picked Ebisu Kanomaru's so-called elite tutor. It'd be one thing if he'd called on someone I respect like Iruka Sensei or even Guy, but this arrogant pervert, I beat him with nothing but a Kage Bunshin and a sexy no jutsu. Forget it. I could learn more from Aunt Setsune. Itachi had been right. He should have just come here to say goodbye, not to overthink his decision. If he'd needed proof that leaving was the right thing to do, Kakashi had just given it to him. We all have an agenda to follow. No use getting mad at anyone about it, just the way we all are, and that's what I have to change about myself. Kakashi had expected Naruto to stay mad at him, so he was surprised to say the least when his loud hyperactive student simply bowed. I guess I should say no thanks, and then thanks. No thanks to your substitute, and thanks for helping me make a big decision. And what decision would that be? I'm leaving your command and leaving the team. No matter how the Chunin exam turns out, it's time we all stopped kidding ourselves that we can get along and go our separate ways. After I see the Hokage, I'm gonna go and train myself. If you want to make the most of the time we've got, you might as well take Sasuke and do the same. I'm not wasting a minute of this break. Neither should he. Surprised and stunned, Kakashi did nothing for a brief moment. Naruto, his decision made, turned and strode for the door. He was halfway out of the hospital entrance before his now former sensei could say a word. Naruto, why would you do something like this? The hyperactive ninja kept walking but turned his head backwards, giving Kakashi one last glimpse of the boy. Naruto smiled a little, and then he was gone. One last message for his sensei, barely reaching Kakashi's ears. Because it's for the best, because it's what my father would have done. You ought to know that better than anyone. It was a few seconds before the full impact of Naruto's words hit Kakashi. He knows, Naruto knows everything, that he's the son of the fourth and that Erasure was my sensei. I don't know how he found out, but
How? Hold on, bro. How?
he knows. You can see it in his eyes, the tone of his voice that explained everything from Sakura's reports of the boy's new attacks to the way he had acted in the preliminaries, and the look in Naruto's eyes as he'd left the hospital. Disappointment mixed with resignation. Not disappointment that Kakashi would not train him. Disappointment that Kakashi had turned against his own sensei's example, putting one student above another. It hurt more than he would have thought, as much as he wanted to chase after Naruto to prove that he hadn't forgotten Arashi's lessons. Kakashi knew it was too late. If Naruto was anything like his father, his mind was made up about all Kakashi could do now was to make sure he played the part of teacher right for his last two students. If Naruto was going to live up to his father's example, it was Kakashi's duty to do the same for his fallen sensei Sasuke. You'd better be ready to train. Damned if you'll slack off, and damned if I'll let you out of my sight before I find a way to end Orochimaru's influence on you. Boy, you really told him off. Naruto, it was hard to tell if Itachi was being sarcastic, but Naruto had been around the ferret long enough to guess right. Look, I may still want to get his help someday with other stuff. Making him angry isn't a good idea. Besides, even if I had verbally ripped his head off, he wouldn't have changed his mind. Sasuke's his pet project at his loss, so what ya gonna do now?
FBI, open up!
Guess I'm going to go back home and train in the diamond and invisible bodies. If I can't summon him, just gonna have to stick with what I know and increase my staying power. A laugh behind him stopped Naruto in mid-musing. As he turned around, he caught sight of Ebisu again, smirking in that annoying fashion of his. Honestly, I don't know what you're thinking. Someone with such terrible fundamentals as you have should train those instead of trying stupid improvised attacks. Naruto considered cursing at the special jounin, but had a better idea. What about you? One look at a naked chick and you
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
need a blood transfusion. Go out and find a girlfriend or something. Oh, sorry, I forgot you were a pervert. Can't even pay them to hook up, can you? Ebisu's temper strained from Naruto's earlier snub of his services blew over. He pointed a shaking finger in the Genin's direction, face going bright red. You wow. Naruto grinned. I had no idea, you stuttered. No wonder you can't get a date. Listen, Eve, got an idea. Why don't we go and work on your people skills and see if that doesn't cure your girl problems. Ebisu's only response was an inarticulate scream as he began to run towards the blonde boy. Naruto leaped out of the way, and the chase was on over rooftops through alleyways. Genin and Jounin bounced through the village, insults and curses flying between them as Naruto continued to evade Ebisu's wild attacks. By the time they reached the bathhouse, Naruto was feeling thoroughly good about life again. Sure, what he was doing wasn't too mature, but after all the angsty stuff with Kakashi, this was a great way to relax. Eve got you now, you irritating scamp. Naruto laughed, getting ready to move again. The only thing you've got is a dead social life. Suddenly a voice hissed at them from behind in the direction of the women's bathhouse.
What do you mean by that?
Keep your damn voices down, you morons. Can't you see there's work being done here? Naruto and Ebisu turned and caught sight of someone hunkered down at the wall of the women's bathhouse, peering in and scribbling something on a notepad. Whether it was because he was tired of chasing Naruto or his sense of justice, Ebisu reacted first. What do you think you're doing there? Come away from that wall at once, you wretch. Don't make me come over there and stop your shameless acts myself. Geez, I haven't heard a speech that lame in years, the man growled, spiky white hair showing up as he raised his head. And would you shut up already? You're gonna make me get caught. Perhaps figuring an older man would be an easier target, Ebisu rushed.
Daddy, chill.
At the mysterious peeper, Naruto's jaw dropped as the white-haired man sighed and disappeared in a cloud of smoke. When he emerged, Naruto stared in shock. The peeper was now sitting on top of Agent Toad. This guy's a summoner. Before Ebisu could react, the Toad clocked him a good shot with a whip of its tongue, knocking the Jounin out cold. Sheesh, what a moron. Can't do anything these days without somebody cracking you over the head with their morals. Naruto simply continued to stare. Could it be that someone might be able to teach him to summon after all, even someone as perverted as the man seemed to be? Oh heck, if I could live with Kakashi Sensei, this guy won't be any worse. With that thought, he stepped towards Toad and Summoner. There was training to negotiate for. After all, Uzumaki Naruto's dreamscape was seldom a place of peace and quiet, despite usually appearing when he was asleep. Now the silence of his dreamscape was again shattered by shouting and the tinkling of shattered glass. I'll kill him, I'll rip his legs off and shove them where the sun doesn't shine. That white-haired loudmouth no-count pervert is a dead man. Geez, Dad, calm down. You'll burst a ghostly blood vessel. Kazama Erasure snarled a curse, wondering why his son was being so cavalier about the situation. You know, for someone who just got thrown off a cliff, you seem pretty okay with it. Exactly what part of this don't you get? You could die, not to mention having to act like such a fool just to get that idiot to train
Me personally, I wouldn't take this level of disrespect.
you in the first place. Uzumaki Naruto was not a child anymore. At least not in his mind. I don't need to be coddled or babied. Who's the one who's always going on about how my duty is so freaking important? Dad, how if I give up or let the nine tails when I'm letting everyone down? Well, what better test than surviving a fall into a canyon? I gotta learn what pervert Sanin was trying to teach me sometime, don't I? Oh, that's rich. The ends justify the means. What if you were just a few days from figuring it all out on your own? All the training in the world is useless if you're dead. Naruto shrugged. Dad, you're 12 years too late to be trying to save me from a life of violence. The fourth Hokage stopped in his tracks, gaping at his son. As he continued to speak, Eve faced Zabuza and Haku, Orochimaru, Soundnins, Mistins, Kiba, all sorts of enemies. Any one of them could have killed me if I'd wasted the time on worrying about that. Being a shinobi means we're always at risk. We just have to carry on and do what we have to. Or have I got it wrong? Erasure. Side kid's got a point. No, you've got it down. It's just not easy for a parent to watch their child undergo something that dangerous. Training or not? Naruto stood up from where had been sitting at the table in his dreamscape room, pacing over to the window. You're treating me like I'm some rank amateur, a kid who's got to be protected from all the dangerous stuff out there. But that's because all you really remember of me is as a baby. I'm a genin in the leaf, not the child you left behind. If you really want to help me, then help me with the challenges I'm facing now, not the ones you're still trying to make up for missing. The fourth sensed that his son meant what he said, but also caught the faint undertone of resentment in Naruto's words. The two of them were closer than they had been when he'd first spoken to the boy. True, but not all wounds heal instantly. If that's the way you want it, then who am I to argue? Tell me what you need and we'll get it done. Naruto breathed a sigh of relief, happy that his father hadn't made it harder than it had to be. Besides, he had his own revenge planned for the pervert Sanin. Anyway, I just want to go over the stuff that's happened since pervert Sanin started teaching me and get the basics down. I gotta get better at this or else I'll never be able to reach the level of summoning Jiraiya. So start from the beginning and we'll see what you're still not getting. Where to begin? Having to bribe the old sage with a sexy no jutsu, endless attempts to summon toads calling only tadpoles. Naruto had plenty of moments he'd much rather have done over again. Only one of them stuck in his memory though. Why weren't you there when I was just talking with the Nine Tails about using his power? It's an isolated experience. You were accessing his psyche directly through his chakra, so you weren't here in your mindscape. You and the Nine Tails were in direct communication, and technically I was there. I was the gate that kept him from getting to you physically. You think it's worth trusting that Thing I mean, when I fought Haku and the red chakra came out, I was losing control fighting like Kiba. Even can't be doing that against Niji or some other enemy, or else I'm dead. Erasure waved a finger admonishing his son. Think Naruto, what was it about fighting Haku that was different from what you need to do in the canyon? Well, I was pissed at Haku for not being able to fight his ice mirrors in the canyon. I was trying to find anything to help me survive or get out of there. That's the difference, right? There, Watre, you talking about? Let's have a look. He had awakened in the middle of a dark, wet corridor, gingerly picking himself up out of the water, and looking about. Last thing I remember, I was falling down the canyon, getting ready to die, so what, I'm in the afterlife, already pretty dreary place, if you ask me. Before long, Naruto's eyes adjusted, and he began to make out the substance of the place. Worn pipes, dripping water down upon him, corridors leading out in all directions, and all of it lit with an eerie light, glowing dark red, pulsing as though mimicking the beating of a heart. The blonde genin had not seen this place before, but he would have known that light, or at least its color. Anywhere Naruto had felt its influence only once while fighting Haku. Gotta be the Nine Tails power giving off that light. That Fox is a tough customer made me strong, but it really wasn't me doing the fighting out there. Can't be having that. He had felt nothing upon first waking, but as Naruto began to walk, a feeling of faint dread began to creep its way up his spine. Each step was taking him closer to something. What it was he didn't know, but it wasn't going to be a real happy place, not lit up like this. It's not. After some time he found himself in front of a metal gate shut tight and sealed with a paper ward behind it. Was blank darkness, but Naruto was not stupid enough to believe the shadows were empty. Whatever had been troubling him was in there. Welp, come closer. The words were not so much said as they were insinuated into his mind, assaulting his very soul with implied hate. The blonde genin snarled, fully recognizing what had spoken. You think you're the only one who deserves to feel hate? Screw you, you giant hairball. Think I don't know you want to kill me and take control? Go ahead and try. My father's already taken care of you. The son hides behind his father's foul seal. You are a matched pair, so he wants out, does he? That could be arranged, bitch. All you want, but you're not getting out. Except under my terms. What need have I to listen to your insignificant terms? How about that drop? We're taking down the canyon. You're gonna be as dead as me once we hit the bottom. The demon fox stayed silent for a while, finally responding in an irritated tone as it bowed to reality. Speak. Welp, I get it that you hate me, and you probably hate everything in sight. I can't change that, and it's your problem anyway. You're angry. Fine, I can give you a way to release your frustration. Let me have full access to your
Hey, yo, what the fuck?
power, not just drops and trickles. I get as much chakra as I can handle, and you can come along as we wreak havoc on the enemy. As long as I'm the one in control, you just stay out of my head, and we're cool. What benefit is there to me? I would not be the one who fights. There is no meaning in destruction unless my own hand inflicts it. But I wasn't done explaining the agreement. This should be interesting. If you fight alongside me someday, you'll break this seal. When I do well, fight for real, you win. You can have control, body and soul, if that's what you want. If I win your mind, let me draw on your chakra strength and even summon you if we can figure out how to work that. What do you say? Do you take me for a fool? How do I know you will ever challenge me and break the seal? Hey, let's get something straight, you demonic furball. I don't care what you think of me, but Uzumaki Naruto never goes back on his word. That's my ninja way, and don't you ever forget it. If I say we're gonna fight, then damn it, we're gonna fight. You don't have to agree to this deal, but believe me when I say I'd be happy to die right now if it means you'll take your nine-tailed ass with me. It's up to you. The Nine Tails laughed. Ha, you humans cling to life like leeches. You are bluffing. Am I? You killed my mother. My father is stuck forever as your seal, dead to everyone but you and me. You nearly destroyed the Leaf Village. Look in my eyes, bastard. Sasuke isn't the only one who has something to kill. The room shook as the Nine Tails roared with laughter. You would have made a good demon. Whelp, you have the art of bargaining with the advantage mastered very well. If you are foolish enough to challenge me, the greatest of the Yukai, then you shall have your wish and I shall have my freedom. Until then, use my power as you will. I shall wait for the time when I destroy you. Yeah, you do that. Naruto snorted. Then you can join Dosu, the Mistnins, and Kiba in the Hall of Shame. The Nine Tails shrugged off Naruto's warning. Bah, enough words. I tire of you and I have agreed to your terms. Let us exit the canyon for once. We actually agree on something. Tell me this isn't going to become a habit. Believe me, Whelp, it will not. Erasure turned back to his son as the just completed memory faded out. That's the difference I was talking about. You were in control the whole time, and the agreement went down on your terms. The Haku fight was pure instinct. You might as well have been a wild animal this time. You made a rational choice, and you'll probably cheat death in the process. If you can remember that control is the key, the fox is never going to be able to beat you when you fight. Naruto shrugged as his father spoke. I don't want to rely on it that much, Dad. Like the furball said, if I'm not doing the fighting, what's the point? So don't use it when you're training. The entire point of having the Nine Tails power is as an emergency reserve or to summon. The rest of the time, use your own chakra and build it up. You'll have to do that in order to win the fight with him. Anyhow, yeah, I guess, Naruto groused. Now I just gotta get out of this damn canyon. Well, what are you standing around here for? Go, you wanna die when you've just extorted the Nine Tails? Hell no, it's Toad time. Even before Naruto's perception returned to the swiftly approaching canyon floor, his hands were in motion, a quick bite to a thumb producing the necessary blood as Jiraiya had taught him. He ran through the seals quickly, the one part of the summoning process he had managed to master, and gave his own version of a prayer. Now work this time. Damn it, Kuchios no Jutsu. Summoning no Jutsu. Naruto's mental request was answered not by the mere puff of smoke that he had seen every time before, but by a red glow slowly spreading forth from the palm he held out. Thrust. Looks like even the Nine Tails keeps its word when it's given. The canyon echoed with a great noise, the faint pop of Naruto's prior attempts replaced with a roar, air displaced by whatever was being summoned forth, and as the rush of noise stopped, so did Naruto's descent. A faint smell of water and tobacco greeted his nostrils as the blonde genin looked around. Gradually the smoke subsided, and he saw what had answered his prayer. Now that is one big toad. Yeah, take that, pervert Sannin. First successful summon, and it's even bigger than the toad you were riding. Naruto's shout had hardly begun to echo in the canyon before it was drowned out by another roar, this time of words. You punk, what the hell you doing on my head? Where's Jiraiya? What I mean, where's pervert Sannin? He ain't the one who did the summoning. I was. The giant toad was silent for a brief moment, eyes rotating inward to gaze at the boy on its head. You summoned me? Yeah, how many times I gotta say it? Bwahahaha, you got some guts, shrimp, lying your mouth off like that. A pup like you being able to summon the boss toad Gamabuntasima like hell without bidding. Another voice stirred in Naruto's mind, rage directed outwards and not at him. For once this toad dares to mock my power, let me loose. I will teach him to laugh at the greatest of the Yukai. Naruto had been afraid that access to the demon fox's power would lead to something like this. If he backed down now, what would keep the Nine Tails from walking all over him in the future? Hey, I gave you my word, and you gave me yours. If I wanted your opinion, I'd ask for it. This is my show, so stay out of my head, and let me handle it. You'll get your precious dignity back. I had better. G's self-absorbed, ain't he? Shoulda left him in that cage. Shrimp, pup, you're not one to read much, are you? Would I mean, kid? Gamabunta's eyes narrowed as a red glow began to gather around Naruto. Slowly the boy's face took on a more feral look, the demonic power within him showing its effects. The blonde genin snarled, burning to avenge the insult to his capabilities. You know what they say, don't judge a book by its cover. I'm no different. You want to insult me, go right ahead, but don't blame me when you have to tell somebody someday that the very first thing you did when you met the son of the fourth Hokage, the future Hokage of the Leaf, was call him a weak-ass shrimp. People might start to think you weren't so smart, ho. So the pup has fangs. That loud mouth of yours is like the fourths he'll give you that tell you what you get in a battle. Call me up and he'll see if you really are his boy. Then you can have the same honor I gave the fourth, and that would be to stand on my head. You think I enjoy having people riding me like a damn horse? Hey, guess not. So all you need is for me to prove myself in battle, huh? I can do that. Well, see, kid, now let's get out of here. My legs are cramping up from holding us here. Suits me. I gotta go find pervert Sannin and kick his ass for this. Anyhow, save some for me, will ya? I owe him a beating for putting me in this situation. Would you count kicking his butt? A battle to prove myself, and I ain't gonna make it that easy for you, kid. I can't say I didn't try. Let's go then. I got some more fighting to do. Hang on then, cause I ain't gonna save you twice in one day. Naruto looked around as he and Gamabunta emerged from the canyon in a single bound, seeing no sign of Jiraiya anywhere. Looks like the pervert's gone off peeping again. Big guy, well, just have to save the beatings for another day. Don't worry about him. It's gonna take more than kicking Jiraiya's, but to show me you're the fourth son, I'll be watching, kid. Having said his thing, the boss toad disappeared in a giant cloud of smoke the same way he had arrived. Naruto stared at the cloud for a moment, letting the events of the last few days sink in. He was a true summoner now, and when Itachi got back from the diplomatic mission the speaker had sent his ferret sidekick on, he would be able to summon more than just toads. Hey, wonder what Niji's face is gonna look like when I show him how many contracts I've signed. He will not be particularly impressed, I think. Naruto's head snapped around as he looked for the animal that had just spoken to him, who said that a large black shape swept past him, resolving into a giant raven fully 4 feet long from beak to tail, with a wingspan that dwarfed the hawks and eagles he normally saw above Konoha. The raven circled briefly in midair before coming to rest nearby, staring at him with its dark glossy eyes. As the blonde genin stared back, something the two sparrows he had first talked to weeks ago came back to him, their last bit of advice: when you are ready, seek out any bird and ask them to lead you to the Ebon Shadows. I take it you're one of the Ebon Shadows, the Raven tribe. You are partially correct, chosen one. The ravens have never needed fancy names or titles. We only distinguish certain among our number. There is but one Ebon Shadow, and you see him before you, chosen one. What are you talking about? All the other animals call me speaker. Did I suddenly pick up another job? No, I am merely calling you by your true title, the one every human such as yourself has worn since the first human struck a bargain with nature. You are the mother's chosen one. As your Mother, grandfather, and uncle were before you. Most animals have neither the attention span nor the respect for your position to use the full title. That is where the speaker name comes from. Nice. Do I have to remember all that? It will help. The old ways are not in wide use any longer, but several of the more traditional tribes still abide by them, including the wolves. If you wish, I will address you as speaker. Sure, I guess. What did you mean by saying I'm not going to impress anyone with contracts? You will only have one contract, not many, if you concentrate on your duties in the forest. A speaker does not require contracts to summon his subjects. If I don't need contracts, then why did I have to sign one to summon Gamabunta and all those tadpoles? The Ebon Shadow's only response was to spread its wings and take flight, gliding towards the tree line. Come into the forest with me, Uzumaki Naruto. I will answer any questions you have as we travel. Still curious, Naruto played along. After a time, as the bright sun of the cliff top was replaced with light shining through trees, the raven spoke again. Gamabunta and most of the toads bound by that contract are not of this forest and its lands. You therefore require a contract in order to call them into battle. However, the animals of any region are much easier to summon for their speaker. No contract is needed once you have established a bond between yourself and a tribal leader, unless you learn to summon other creatures not of the Konoha region. You would only have one contract to show to Hyuga Niji. How do you know his whole name? The rank of Ebon Shadow makes me the tribal chief of the Ravens and their lorekeeper. It also makes me your personal lorekeeper, as my predecessors were for your ancestors. My master and mentor was the lorekeeper for your grandfather. For example, the lorekeeper's duty is to know everything about his master, be it his life story or simply a record of battles. My tribe and I have been keeping track of your life for some time, waiting until you assumed your rightful role. Naruto stopped in his tracks, looking up at the flat expression on the raven's face. Wait a minute, you knew all along what I was. Why didn't you tell me all this stuff when I was a kid? The mother provides all. Naruto, her children are forbidden to force a speaker to assume their role, whether as a child or as an adult. Even if we had wanted to speak to you or tell you of your abilities, we could not have. Every speaker must approach the role in individual fashion, free of outside influence. It would not do to have a speaker who served but resented their duties. Nobody would benefit. It's not like I wouldn't have said yes if you'd asked when I was little. You have any idea how much I wanted to have a friend back then? Of course, there were many who knew what was going on in your life, but try to understand, Naruto. Had we come forward then offering to bring forth your abilities and tempted you to assume the role, it would have been useless. You would have been too young to appreciate the job that came with the ability. Even your great-grandfather Kotaro was 14 before he took the title. He was the youngest speaker we had ever known before you came along. Naruto was silent for some time, continuing to walk through the forest, but not looking at the raven. When he spoke again, it was in a low, controlled tone. You may have a point, but that doesn't mean I have to like it. Let's get something straight right now. I don't care how much you know about me or my life. If you want me to keep doing this crazy job and you want to keep yours, don't ever withhold anything from me again. I want the truth, no matter how much it might suck or how brutal you have to be. We clear, crystal clear. Good, now let's go wherever you were taking us. Already, I ain't got time to waste with the finals so close. Before long, Naruto found himself going up the back of the Hokage Memorial, a mountain landscape he had never actually seen, not overly familiar with. The area he looked around, searching for animals. That reminds me, where's Satachi? I sent him out to tell all the tribes I was taking on the job. He should have reported back by now. Ah, the ferret. I sent him home. What the hell? For the Ebon Shadow fixed his master with a discerning eye. It would have been useless, Naruto. The chiefs are proud of their rank, and they would accept nothing less than your personal appearance to acknowledge you. Sending a lackey would make you come off as arrogant. You cannot afford to give them that kind of first impression. Even animals have feelings. Is that it indeed? Which chief are you taking me to see? We are to meet the safest tribe possible, considering your level of experience and youth. The back of the Memorial Mountain is the home of the bears. If they're the same bears that even made the wolves nervous, I think I'm going to like them. I would not be so sure. The forest has changed greatly in 12 years. Not everything is as it was when your mother was speaker. What do you mean? Talk to the bears and you will see for yourself. It didn't take long for Naruto to quickly lose his enthusiasm for talking to the biggest inhabitants of the forest. It wasn't that they were boring, that he could have lived with. Instead, he was losing interest and getting more than a little irritated at what he was hearing from their chief. We will accept the speaker's blessing when he has assumed his role. Not before. Bargain all you wish, Lord Shadow, but I have made my decision and I will not back down. It seemed even the chief of the Ravens had moments when his calm manner turned angry. Lady Sunflower, the speaker has told you personally that he is ready to begin his duties. I have told you he is ready. It is unreasonable to demand assurances when you already have more than enough. The female head of the bear tribe rose up on her hind legs, roaring out the frustration everyone in the forest clearing had been feeling since Naruto and the Ebon Shadow had arrived. Since the grizzly bear was twice the size of any of her subjects, rising to almost 14 feet when standing, it had rather an awe-inspiring effect on Naruto. Until she opened her mouth again, we have been waiting for someone to take up the burden that Haruka-sama vacated 12 years ago to make up for the loss of her conviction and heart. Instead you bring a child, Lord Shadow, a child. He is even younger than Kotorasama was. Do not think your position allows you to insult my intelligence. Our land is in anarchy and you send an untrained speaker to resolve the situation. His inexperience is precisely why I brought him to you. He has no ties or favored tribes. Being so young, there is no way he could possibly be biased, unlike Kotorasama or Haruka-sama. Could be at times that leads to a fairer outcome for all of us, does it not? Not if he cannot get the chiefs to listen to him. Would you listen to a fledgling if his ideas were reasonable and his heart resolute? I fear would have him come back in a decade or two. Are the two of you done talking about me? Like I'm not here because I'm a little tired of being patronized by both of you. The Ebon Shadow took flight from the branch where he had been addressing Lady Sunflower, landing beside Naruto. My apology, speaker. This is your stage, not mine. Forget it. I should have let everyone know from the start that things are going to be a little different around here, but there's plenty of time to correct that mistake, and here is a good place to start. Turning to look at the giant bear in front of him, Naruto let a little of the nine tails out, not enough to strengthen him, but enough to change the color of his aura, and the expression on his face. As he did so, the light began to dim in the sunlit clearing, each ray shining on Naruto becoming tinged with a crimson aura. Menace creeping slowly from his shadow. Gamabunta had needed a show of power to take notice of the fourth sun, and an angry 14-foot-long female bear was not going to respond well either if he wussed out. I can't argue with your logic. If I had to depend on someone fresh out of the academy to do a job, I'd probably be suspicious too, but it's one thing to doubt me and another thing entirely to call me incompetent from the start. You see this body count up the years since I was born, and you call me a child. Physically sure, I'll grant you that much, but you haven't seen the battles Eve fought. You've never been there to see me put my life on the line against an enemy who was supposed to be out of my league. So this once I'll forget the insult. But let me say something I hope you never forget. Everyone who ever underestimated me has lived to eat their words. You can insult me all you want if I fail to do what you're so worked up about, but that's a big if, so let's forget the pleasantries and trying to be pals you obviously don't want to do either. Just tell me what you want done. I'll get off your mountain and out of your fur. For a moment it seemed as though Lady Sunflower didn't know whether to accept Naruto's offer or simply rip him limb from limb. When she responded, it was with a curt tone. You come close to insult yourself, human, but I too shall overlook your actions. If you succeed, words, just give me the job and we'll see who's right. If you wish to restore order, then bring back the wolves and the anarchy, and save us all. What the hell kind of job description was that? Do I round them up, hunt them down? I have said all I will say to you until you have rightfully assumed your title. Naruto nearly reached for a kunai as the bear chief and her subjects turned and left the clearing, but he saw the Ebon Shadow shake its head briefly and refrained. Who the hell does she think she is? The one with the huge job and all the duties. Does she think I want to fail? Forgive them, Naruto. Of all the tribes in the Konoha forest, the bears have suffered the most since your family was wiped out 12 years ago. The nine-tailed demon fox destroyed more than human lives. It brought a great tragedy down upon this forest, and that would be, do you know that your mother was a great friend of the dire wolves? Yeah, what about it? Haruka-sama did not die alone when she fought the Nine Tails. Bloodfang, lord of the forest and chief of the wolves, was with her. By his side stood 3 of his 4 sons, Shadow's Lair, Raging Claw, and Howling Thunder. All of them fought the Nine Tails, and all of them died faithful to the last. Ever since, the forest and mountains have echoed with the howls of the wolves, honoring their fallen heroes. You said 3 of his 4 sons. Where was the other one? He was not there. That is the reason for Lady Sunflower's anger and the suffering of the forest. What does one wolf's survival have to do with an entire forest falling into anarchy? Everything. Bloodfang's 4th son, Moongazer, did not fight because he was a coward. His father ordered him to fight, but he fled instead, running deep into the mountains. If I had to fight the Nine Tails straight up, I'd be scared too. It's understandable. Not to the dire wolves. To them, cowardice is a mortal sin. When it was discovered that Moongazer had left his father and brothers to die, the wolves were thrown into chaos. They needed a new pack master, but the only remaining member of their royal family was the one wolf that none of them would follow. So what happened? The wolves have many separate clans among their numbers, the equivalent of human families without a ruler. Each clan left to handle its own affairs, taking their own territory and turning it into a tinier kingdom. There was nobody left to enforce the laws that Bloodfang and his ancestors had decreed, most importantly the laws governing hunting. How much could be done, and where some of the most loyal clans have stayed true to the laws even without a chief to guide them, many of the other younger clans went on a rampage ranging well over the borders of the wolves' territory, hunting anything they pleased whenever they wanted. Now they terrorized the other animals. taking land that is not theirs and threatening to wipe out whole tribes by killing the young and old alike, since the wolves and bears have been rivals from the dawn of time. Lady Sunflower and her people have borne the brunt of this assault. For now they are holding on, but they do not reproduce nearly as fast as the wolves. If order is not restored soon, they will be driven to extinction. So she really just wants me to find a new packmaster. All the wolves will accept and have him reign them. In that is the first step, yes, but it will not be easy. If it were as simple as just finding a popular wolf, Bloodfang could have been replaced in days, not years. No, the wolves are too traditional. They do not readily accept change. Sure, but there's got to be some way to bring them together perhaps, but it will be a daunting task, and unless you have any ideas, I suggest we go see an old friend of mine. No offense, but if he's anything like Lady Sunflower, I think I'm gonna pass, even if I tell you he is one of the last wolves left. Who knew your mother personally? You'd better not be lying about that. The raven made a noise that sounded oddly like a laugh as it took wing, heading back down the mountain. When it comes to the wolves, lying is not a wise thing to do. Come, Naruto, we have little time to waste. Naruto had many questions as he and the ebon shadow trekked deeper into the forest, one in particular coming up as they strolled through a stand of tall pine trees. So let me get this straight. I know the dearly departed leader, the last boss of the wolves, was named Bloodfang. You say the clan leader you're taking me to is named Bloodclaw. What were they, brothers? They were as close as brothers, even if it was not in blood. Bloodclaw is the leader of the strongest clan left, the Crimson Moon. The Crimson Moon clan and Bloodfang's clan, the Golden Moon, supposedly sprang from the same family long ago, a little bit like the Hyuga main house and branch house, yes, but without the mutual hatred among the wolves. It is no shame to bow to one stronger than you, as long as you have learned your true strength through battle. To surrender without fighting may be smart for humans, but to a wolf it means utter disgrace. Naruto was about to respond by defending his own bravery, but before he could, another voice cut him off, sounding old and tired. Well said, old friend, you are a worthy lorekeeper indeed to know so much of our ways. Naruto turned to see a pack of dire wolves emerge from the shadows behind him, each with a wary look in its eyes. Except for the one in the lead, an old wolf body and muzzle crisscrossed with battle scars. The Raven Chief laughed, clacking his beak to show his great mirth. Ha, in other words, I know too much for your liking. Finally, you admit it, you old buzzard, but enough banter. I see you have brought the young chosen, none other. He is the last true chosen left, though there is one other. I suppose if you consider blood alone, it will be an honor then to be the first to welcome him into this insane little world of ours. Naruto's eyes narrowed as Bloodclaw knelt on his front paws, each of his packmates doing the same in turn. Guess the wolves have fonder memories of speakers than the bears do. By the grace of the mother, the chosen one rises, taking the place of the fallen, as it has ever been. I, Bloodclaw, leader of the Crimson Moon clan, swear fealty to the mother's chosen, as the ancient pact demands. May his time among us be long, and may he serve with honor. Thanks a lot. Bloodclaw threw his head back and roared with laughter. You are your mother's son indeed. Nearly 20 of your human years ago, I watched Harukasama display the same reaction when she first came before my brother Bloodfang. If I had not known of your blood before, I know it for certain now. She soon became confident in herself and her abilities, and we are all confident you will do the same. I probably would if I hadn't been given such a nasty job to do right from the get-go. Lord Shadow says your Crimson Moon clan is the strongest one left, and you have distant ties to the Golden Moon. Why not step in and stop the chaos by taking command of the other clans? Even if they would have accepted my stewardship, I am not long for this world. I sometimes think what you humans call karma is the only thing that keeps me alive, robbing me of my strength as punishment for the devastation that is being rained down upon the other tribes. Why would you be punished? It wasn't like you were the one who chickened out of the fight with the Ninetales. I do not have guilt about Moongazer's disgrace. That burden rests firmly on him, wherever he may have run to. Then what's with the guilt trip? Bloodclaw stood walking back the way he had come, motioning with his scarred visage for the blonde genin to follow. As well as we know each other, Lord Shadow, there are some things that should remain private. What I am about to tell the chosen is for his ears and mine alone. I trust you understand. Do what you must, old friend. If you believe it will help, it might. If it is not already too late, we shall see. Are we going to talk, or are the two of you going to reminisce all day? You are correct, chosen. Let us be going. It was some time before either of them spoke again. Enough that boy and wolf had passed out of the forest proper and onto a mountainside, looking out over the wasteland that formed the leaf's border with the sand. What's so embarrassing you had to come all the way out here to say it, Moongazer? Or rather, what became of him? That is the reason for my guilt. Hold it, you just told me he got himself into this mess, and it wasn't your problem. Why the sudden change of heart? Moongazer is indeed the cause of the chaos in this forest, however. He is also the solution. Naruto's head snapped around as he turned to look at the old wolf. How is he the solution if no wolf will follow him? Moongazer has always had an option open to him, a way to end his disgrace if he should prove his bravery to all of the clans and show he is a true descendant of the Golden Moon clan. The clans are honor-bound to accept him as the Packmaster Bloodfang's successor. Prove his bravery, how he must challenge the head of each clan to single combat, and when a normal pup would simply have to fight someone from each clan to show his bravery. But the Golden Moon clan is royalty. Their trials are more difficult by necessity. Our rulers must be the best among us, and that means they must be the strongest. Naruto shook his head. His own battle experience coming to mind. No wonder Moon Gazer hasn't tried it. Then a wimp like him wouldn't last 2 seconds against a bunch of clan leaders who want him dead for shaming the tribe. You are mistaken. Chosen Moon Gazer was, and presumably still is, capable of killing most of the clan leaders in the tribe. I should know. I was his mentor, his teacher. I taught the pup everything I knew about combat strategy tactics. Moon Gazer was no less skilled than any of his brothers. The only thing he lacked, it seems, was courage. Naruto heard the wolf's words, but something didn't make sense. If he can defeat the clan leaders and prove his bravery, and he knows it, why hasn't he made a move yet? Bloodclaw laughed, but this time it was a sound totally bereft of mirth. When the old wolf spoke, it was with a bitter, hard edge to his words. He has not moved because of me. Come again. I was his master in the ways of combat. I know the counter to every trick and attack he could possibly use, and even in my weakened condition, Moon Gazer cannot defeat me. I wouldn't be so sure. Bloodclaw, I mean, this is his only chance to get back the glory he lost. Why wouldn't he at least try to take you on? There is a simple explanation. Chosen One, Moon Gazer did try not more than a year after Harakasama and my brother died fighting the Ninetales, or at least he told me that he would fight, and I was to be his first target. So you beat him? Bloodclaw's voice lost its edge, simply sounding tired, as though the weight of the world burdened him. I did not have to. Then what the hell happened? Moon Gazer came to me first because I was the only opponent he had to worry about. He would not say it aloud, but he expected me to give less than my best effort, expected me to help him erase the shame he had brought to the Golden Moon. He should have known better than to even suggest such a thing. When he had finished pleading with me, Moon Gazer stood there, half a smile on his face, anticipating that I would do what he asked of me. And you turned him down flat. Turned him down, I told the simpering fool I would kill him where he stood, a scion of the Golden Moon, blessed with power and strength that any other wolf would die for, reduced to a quivering ball of fur, forcing his father and brothers to live their final moments in shame and remorse rather than the joy and glory of battle. Even if every other clan leader bowed to him, my clan would do no such thing. My brother deserved better than to have his memory tarnished by letting his son reclaim lost honor so easily. The only way he would ever prove his bravery was to kill me and every other warrior of the Crimson Moon clan, because we would never serve him while breath remained in our bodies. Moon Gazer knew he could not do so, and the coward fled for good. So what? You're a clan leader, someone who takes honor seriously. It was within your rights to chew him out like that, even if the consequences causing anarchy in the entire forest. So you just want it to end, and damn the consequences. I am old, Chosen One, and perhaps a bit nostalgic because of it. When Harakasama and my brother were still alive, the wolves ruled the forest as we should still, but it was not the rule of fear the clans have imposed now. We ruled then because the other tribes respected us. They trusted my brother to reign in the clan savagery, and to cull only the weak and old. In return, we were given great tribute from each tribe, so that we would not only feast on the dregs but also eat well. Those days will never return unless the Golden Moon clan returns and stops the disloyal clans from destroying the other tribes with their overhunting. If allowing Moon Gazer to win is the only way to restore order, I can live with the personal shame. My regret is that it has taken me this long to realize my folly. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. You want the Golden Moon clan to come back and set things right, but I still gotta find Moon Gazer first. If he's even alive, he is alive, but that is all I know for certain. There have been rumors coming from the desert and wastelands about an oasis near the edge of the forest. They say the animals of the desert have found a protector there, that a wolf defends them from other predators. You think it's Moon Gazer? None of the other clans would range out that far. We are creatures of the forest, not the sands. Fair enough, so I'll ask you one last time before I get Lord Shadow and head out there. Bloodclaw, will you support Moon Gazer if I bring him back to restore order? You have my word. Chosen, it is all I have left. I know, that's why I'll count on it. I am confused, Naruto. If we are supposed to be looking for Moon Gazer's oasis, what are we doing at your house? Walking down the path to the Uzumaki house. Naruto looked back at the ebon shadow flying along behind him. Two things. First, I have to find Itachi. You know how ferrets are. They should have a good idea about all sorts of rumors. Maybe they know where the oasis would be. Second, I gotta get some supplies handy, like maybe a canteen. We could be out in that wasteland a long time looking for Moon Gazer, and I'd rather not get turned into a crispy critter out there. If I can avoid it. I must admit that I had not thought you would plan things so far ahead. Naruto sighed. Even the birds think him stupid. Look, I wasn't the best student in the academy, and he'll never be a genius like people say Shikamaru is, but I'm no moron as much as I might look it sometimes. Indeed not. You will surely teach that to many in the human and animal worlds alike. Flattery ain't gonna get you anywhere, you feathered know-it-all. Stay here, and he'll open the big kitchen window. You're too big to fit through the door. A hop, several skips, 2 jumps, and a full somersault later Naruto arrived in the kitchen, only missing several strands of hair and half an inch off the back of his jacket, which was pretty good considering what had happened the last time Head tried to get a late-night snack without Setsuna to guide him, strolling over to the plate glass window in front of the sink. Naruto looked around, trying to figure out how to let the raven inside latch. How the hell do you open this thing? Ah, here we go. His eyes locked onto a dusty metal latch at the top of the window, which the blonde genin opened with a loud creaking noise as Naruto pulled the closer half of the window. Inside, the Raven Chief swooped into the Uzumaki house, landing on the kitchen counter. An interesting place. Is it true that this house is full of traps? I thought you knew all about my life. Already I do, but up until your aunt returned you had never been in this house, and neither had any of my people. We may as well learn about the traps together, Naruto would have responded, but as he opened his mouth a pot smacked into the back of his head with an audible bong. Learn outside, would ya? Eve got the hangover from hell, and I just woke up. The blonde genin shrugged, seeing his aunt trying to overcome the effects of her latest hangover was nothing new, especially since her idea of negotiating with the builders of her restaurant was drinking them under the table before they signed any contracts. Aunt Setsuna, it's almost sunset. When did you get in last night? Try this morning. I think it was around 9 or so, because the academy kids had just passed me on the way to school. Naruto shook his head, smiling a little. Geez, who's the parent and who's the kid? Digging open a drawer, the younger Uzumaki leaned his head out of the way as knives shot out from a spring-loaded rack and pulled out an aspirin bottle, tossing it over to where Setsuna sat with her head on the table. One of the ex-waitress' hands shot up and grabbed the bottle, her head never moving. She spoke again, voice a dull croak worthy of the ebon shadow water. Naruto shrugged and went back over to the sink. Bucket or glass? Glass. The bucket's for customers. Pouring a glass of tap water, Naruto placed it down on the table beside his aunt's head as quietly as possible. No sense irritating her and missing out on free ramen for life. So what did you squeeze out of them this time? Setsuna's shoulders moved in something he assumed was supposed to be a shrug. No more discounts for me as long as they finished painting and stuff by today. In fact, if I could drag my ass out of here and go check on them, they should be done by now. Naruto considered the impact of that statement. You mean to say, yeah, if he's their slinger owes you 5 free supersized bowls of ramen as your winnings from the poker game last week. If the kitchen's ready, you could even get them today. I told the nutty bastard you haven't played enough poker to know how to bluff, but hell, I'm not the one who bet everything against a kid holding a royal flush. Just as Naruto was about to brag about his poker prowess, something else crossed his mind. Hey, wait a minute, Aunt Setsuna, did you respond to the ebon shadow just now? The raven perched on the counter again, her shoulders moved. Yeah, something like that. Then why would they have asked me to be speaker if you have the ability and you already knew about it? We asked her first. Naruto Setsunasama declined to take the position of speaker. What? But you gotta know better than I do what has to be done. Maybe ain't really sure myself, to tell the truth, but even if I did know all that, I can't do it. Why not? Setsuna's hand moved again, pointing to the aspirin bottle. Take a wild flipping guess. The restaurant? Yeah, I can talk to the animals all I want and try to help, but you and I gotta eat. Can't be running a restaurant with wild animals coming in at all hours of the day. You know, people start making a stink about the place being unsanitary. Naruto shrugged. Typical. What a shocker. Can I at least bring in some of the animals now? And then this time his aunt actually sat up, revealing a set of bloodshot eyes. She immediately closed before light could hit them. Yeah, just keep him out of the kitchen. Look, Naruto, I realize I'm not the best parental figure and I don't know half the stuff that you're really interested in learning, but don't think that means I don't care what happens to you or what you're going through. It just means I'm not always as available as, say, Irika might be to you. If it's an emergency, come by the restaurant. Slinger and Mickey do most of the work anyway. Naruto shrugged. He knew Setsuna was trying not to be as lazy as she had been at first, and he appreciated it, but it'll be a while before we really trust each other like parent and child, and we both know it'll keep it in mind, but right now I got a job to do on my own. Where's all the survival gear, tents, canteens, and that kind of stuff? Setsuna set her head back down on the table, her moment of candor overchecked. The armory in the box that's furthest away from the door. Your great-grandfather believed nobody was worthy of using survival gear if they couldn't survive to get it, so watch for more traps, and whatever you do, don't touch the sword on the pedestal in the middle of the room. It's a fake meant to lure would-be thieves to their doom. Striding back down the hallway on the first floor, Naruto and the ebon shadow eventually came to a door marked armory. The genin shrugged, not very impressed. I wonder what the big deal is about protecting this place. If they were all umbu, there shouldn't be anything in there, but those straight blades, do not be so sure. Your great-grandfather was a great lover of weapons. Naruto snorted, reaching for the door handle and opening the armory. Come on, Shadow, you expect me to believe that he's got some huge stockpile of stuff? The ebon shadow looked into the room as he heard Naruto's voice trail off and immediately saw why the stories were true. Uzumaki Kotaro was stubborn and a fool in many things, but nobody knew weapons as well or had as many. The room they looked into stretched out at least 200 feet, walls lined with dozens of weapon racks. Naruto glanced at each in turn as he stepped into the room. What was he preparing for? A war? Spears, naginata, katanas, even a couple of nodachis and azamatos. Got 5 whole racks just for kunai and shuriken alone, all possibilities for all situations. That was his philosophy. Your great-grandfather was a proud man, and being caught unprepared would have been a loss of face to him. Sounds like an uptight jackass to me. No wonder he and Aunt Setsuna never saw eye to eye. That may be true, Naruto, but do not let your disagreement with his ways turn into disrespect. For all his faults, Kotorasama was still a respected speaker and a just man. That is more than many animals would say about a human. Naruto just grinned as he slowly crossed the floor, moving towards the box he wanted. Never said I didn't respect his legacy. You can be a genius and a jackass at the same time. Just look at Neji. Fair enough. Strangely, nothing much happened as Naruto approached the survival gear. Was it his experience with the house kicking in, or was it simply that the sword set in the middle of the room, hilt glowing with inlaid jewels and gold, was trap enough to protect the entire place? It bore looking into after head gotten what he needed. Great, he's got a tent and canteens. He'll just be taking these and we're off to find Itachi. Hope you know where he lives, because I sure don't. He just appeared out of nowhere the day we met. The Raven Chief sounded a lot less confident in his answer than usual. Actually, don't tell me the lorekeeper doesn't even know where a ferret would live. Unfortunately, I am mostly only familiar with the chief's. Lord Yama, the chief of the ferrets, would probably know where Itachi lives. We can always go and ask him, since you would have had to meet him at some point anyway. Naruto sighed. You've got an answer for everything. All right, so show me where he is and let's go. Gotta get into the desert before sunset, find some firewood and drag it along for tonight. We should be off then. This is probably the only time of day Lord Yama is ever active. When he first wakes up, the rest of the time he is either sleeping, eating, or generally doing nothing at all. You make him out to be like Aunt Setsuna. The Raven Chief made a sound like a snort as he flew back towards the entrance of the armory. For good reason. Where do you think he got his ideas? They know each other. No, I doubt it. Setsunasama never did anything speaker related. When she was younger, once she found out that domestic animals like dogs and cats couldn't talk to her, it apparently wasn't worth the effort for her to go out and find the wilder animals in the forest. That sounds like her. All right. How did Lord Yama get his ideas from her, even if he never met Setsunasama in person? The affairs of the Uzumaki family were always well known in the forest. Our welfare depends in large part on who the speakers are and how well they perform their duties. Your aunt's defection was the talk of the Konoha forest for years after she left. Lord Yama heard the stories about it as a child and decided that it was possible to rule with as little effort as possible, as long as he gave it just a tiny bit more effort than Setsunasama, and when he said tiny, he meant it. So the ferrets are running wild like the wolves. Lord Yama would never allow his people to descend into chaos. I cannot say much for his work ethic, but he has some idea of his responsibilities. If a matter truly requires his attention, he will handle it. If it does not, he expects his people to take matters into their own paws. It would never work for any other tribe, but then the ferrets are scavengers. They are used to getting by on their own. They'd better be. I can only handle one tribe in chaos at a time. Genin and Raven traveled the same careful route back out of the room, but Naruto found his attention diverted by the sword on the pedestal again, simply sitting there harmlessly. Okay, hang on, who would actually be dumb enough to touch that thing? It practically screams trap, even to someone who's not a ninja. I bet the gold and stuff isn't even real. Is it wise to simply ignore what Setsunasama said, though you know she would not go to the trouble of lying to you? I know that much, but it just doesn't make any freaking sense. If my great-grandfather was so hung up on his weapon collection, why would he only protect it with such an obvious trap? I gotta check it out. Do you really think that's safe? Naruto snorted. Gimme some credit. I'm not gonna touch it myself. Well, not technically anyway. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, a clone of the blonde boy, popped out in a cloud of smoke as Naruto himself backed slowly out of the room, the ebon shadow swiftly following him. Both of them watched as the other Naruto stepped boldly up to the pedestal and grabbed the bejeweled sword hilt. Uzumaki Setsuna looked up from the table as she heard footsteps coming in her direction, figuring her nephew was done messing around and was ready to leave. As Naruto entered the room, the former waitress noted an odd look on the boy's face. You touched the sword, didn't you? He was silent for a moment before responding. How'd you guess? There's only 2 ways for a human face to get that white, and you don't strike me as the type to wear makeup. Gramps always was touchy about his collection falling into the wrong hands. Touchy. Throwing a temper tantrum is touchy. Kicking a goban over when you're losing is touchy. That was not touchy, that was downright psychotic. Welcome to my world, kid. Your mother and I had to go through that every day as kids. Well, not the violent part, but at least the psychotic part. Just be glad you don't. Yeah, spare me the history lesson. I got what I needed, so I'm off. Don't know when he'll be back, so don't be drinking too. Much okay, Setsuna growled and set her head back on the table. I heard you the first time, what are you, my mother? Nah. Naruto grinned as he leapt out the window, the ebon shadow behind him. Wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. Don't call me a zero, I'm gonna be a hero like Phil Esposito or the Kennedys. He'll be incorporated, and he'll be imitated and overrated, but that doesn't bother me. All the jaws will drop and all the girls will scream, and there will be commotion when I show up on the scene. All that you will see is a celebrity, bare naked ladies celebrity. Pretty young for a speaker. He worth the title. As things turned out, it had been fairly easy to reach the mountain lair of the ferret chief, who was now looking up at Naruto with a pair of half-lidded eyes. The spiky-haired boy hoped it was because Lord Yama was still sleepy, and not out of distrust as it had been with Lady Sunflower. The ebon shadow nodded, perhaps more confident than his master, because he knew the ferret better. You have my word, Lord Yama, he is ready for the task. The ferret combed its whiskers lazily with its paws. Naruto's instincts deciphering the movement as a yawn. Like all of the chiefs he had seen so far, Lord Yama was twice the size of his normal subjects, although he was taller rather than longer. As Lady Sunflower had been, the ferret chief also boasted a sleek coat of pure white fur, which the ebon shadow had told him was the mark of the ferret's ruling family. You're the know-it-all, I'll take your word for it. Hail to the chief and all that. So what ya doing up here? Bears get on your case. When you tried to give em the blessing, Naruto gaped down at the furry animal, stunned at the ferret's knowledge. You already know about that. Nah, common sense. They've been getting their asses kicked pretty bad. A new speaker's only gonna make em complain harder about having to fight the wolf clans. Me, I say they wouldn't have so many problems if they just learned to loosen up already. Well, that's their problem. My problem is I gotta find the wolves a leader, and I was hoping to find a pal of mine to maybe see if he's heard the rumors about an oasis in the desert. You know, a kid ferret called Itachi. Sounds familiar. The half-breed rooster's kid. Yeah, that's him. You know where he lives, don't you? Not a clue. Naruto picked himself and the ebon shadow off the ground from where they'd face-faulted before he responded. You're the chief, shouldn't you have to know that stuff? Lord Yama shrugged, managing to look cute and nonchalant at the same time. Ain't my fault his pop's too lazy to bring the little punk up here and gimme the details. Relax, speaker, I gotcha covered. Rooster's probably out chasing a chicken dinner by now, but his brother should still be home. Hell no, where your boy is his brother? You mean Itachi's uncle Sushi? Yup, Sushi's got scavenging down to a science, but he has to wait until the dinner rush for the big score. Sun ain't set yet, so he'll be under the sushi place snoozing until dusk come on. I'll take ya there, take me there. I figured you'd just send me down and go off to eat. Lord Yama snorted, scampering up Naruto's legs and onto his shoulder, where he curled around the young speaker's neck. Only slightly heavier a burden than Itachi usually was. Why do that when I can get in good with the speaker and get a bite to eat at the same time? Naruto pondered the thought for a moment until he caught the ferret's meaning. I know you didn't just say I gotta buy dinner for you, Lord Yama. Come on, what's the point of being such a big shot if you can't treat your buddies to a meal once in a while? I don't eat much. Well, not for a human anyhow. Naruto shrugged and turned back towards the village, looking up as the ebon shadow rose into the air to follow. You know, you only said I had to handle the big problems, not break the bank buying meals for every hungry animal in the Konoha forest. The raven was still laughing when they reached the foot of the mountain. Sushi, get out here. The new speaker's gotta find that half-breed nephew of yours. What he do this time, boss? Naruto listened intently and barely made out the second faint animal voice over the racket coming from the Nico Sushi restaurant. He was rather distracted at the moment, as Nico Sushi, coincidentally enough, sat right across the street from the familiar curtain of the Ichiraka ramen stand. Between the chatter of customers at both restaurants, the growling of his stomach, and Lord Yama shouting in his ear, it was kind of difficult to hear anything at all. The ferret chief sounded amused with that response. What is there something I should know about? Sushi's reply surprised none of them. Ask Rooster, it's his kid. Naruto had an easier time hearing that as he saw a furry black and white shape emerge from underneath the Nico Sushi building. Itachi's uncle Sushi had it appeared finally roused himself. Lord Yama greeted him with a chuckle. Ah, he didn't do nothing, him just messing with you. Speaker wants to ask him about some rumors going round the forest. Where's the kid live that all you wanted to know? Check that flower shop down on Tsuruka Street. I seen him messing around with some human girls in that neighborhood, getting fed and cuddled. So when I ask him about it, he says he hangs out there 'cause human girls are always coming in and out to buy flowers. It's the perfect place for him to score treats and stuff. Naruto shook his head disgustedly. First a perverted sensei and now a perverted sidekick. People are gonna start thinking it's rubbing off on me. For the second time that day, several animals had a good laugh at the blonde boy's expense. Itachi, get your furry perverted but out here your little vacations over. Yamanaka Ino blinked briefly as she heard Naruto's yell come through her window on the second floor of the flower shop. Who was the hyperactive boy talking to nobody named Itachi lived at her house. Just as she was about to ignore it, Naruto shouted again. This time the sound was even closer, which meant he was Definitely talking to someone inside Itachi. I know you're in there. Your Uncle Sushi told us where you live, so get out here already. I ain't got all asterisk and dollar day. A large sweat drop formed on the back of the blonde kunoichi's head. Uncle Sushi Naruto was really confusing her now. And if there was one thing Ino wasn't in the mood for being out of the Chunin exam and ticked at Shikamaru, it was having a loudmouth blonde genin yelling stuff through her window that didn't make sense. Storming over to the window, she threw it open and leaned out into the street with a yell of her own. Would you shut up already, Naruto? There's nobody named Itachi in my family. And I certainly don't have an Uncle Sushi. Go annoy someone else who said anything about your family. I ain't talking to someone in the building, I'm talking to someone under it, under the building. Another sweat drop joined the one already on the back of Ino's head. Just as she was about to yell at him again, the blonde girl looked down and did a double take. Beside Naruto stood a gigantic raven, a white ferret bigger than any shed ever seen, was perched on his left shoulder, and down by the rose bushes her mother had planted in front of the flower shop, a smaller gray ferret had emerged swiftly, racing up onto Naruto's right shoulder. Took you long enough. What were you doing taking a dump? Hey, I'm not a morning ferret, I'm not even an afternoon ferret. You wake me up from a sound sleep. How fast do you think I'm gonna be? Moving faster than that next time your speakers. Got a job for you, got it, brat? The younger ferret did his own double take when he heard his chief speak. Beb boss, watre you doing here, missing out on valuable eatin' time because your punk ass was sleeping. And what else? Okay, Lord Yama, leave him alone, ain't his fault. I never asked him where he lived. Now that I know, I won't need to drag you away from the mountain to find him anymore, and I won't have to buy you dinner either. PSH, where's the fun in that? Ino watched in growing puzzlement, having only heard what Naruto was saying. What was he doing with two giant animals accompanying him, and why was the boy acting like he was having a conversation with them? Did all those punches from Sakura finally scramble your brain? What is this, Naruto's Wild Kingdom? You can talk to the birdies now. Naruto looked up at her and snorted, just birds? What do I look like, Shino or Kiba? I'm friggin' multilingual. That wasn't what I figured. Head say Yamanaka. Ino often thought she had been named wrong, and not just because Sakura called her a pig all the time. It was more because she really liked cats. Certainly her curiosity, like a feline's, was now really getting a hold of her. You're serious about this? You can talk to them now. Naruto was just being sarcastic. No, I like to hear the sound of my voice. Of course I can talk to them. What, I think I am crazy? Well, you look crazy. What, who else would go around with a bunch of gigantic animals and have conversations with them in broad daylight? Naruto turned his head slightly as Lord Yama's voice intruded on his argument with Ino. She's got you there, kid. Would you stay out of this? You're not helping there, Naruto. You see what I mean? The ferret didn't even say anything. Naruto threw his hands up in exasperation. That's because you can't understand what he's saying. Geez, this is getting me nowhere. Lord Yama's ears perked up at that. Really good. Then we can go eat. I'm starving. Naruto clapped a hand to his forehead. Is your stomach the only thing you can think about? Someone thinks I'm a nutcase here, so explain it to her. Worst that could happen is she thinks you're a loon, which she already does. Silence. So far the Ebon Shadow contributed some advice of its own. Lord Yama may be on to something. Why not ask her to let you explain the situation in detail? Is that even allowed? The raven flapped its wings, its version of a shrug, and replied with the faintest hint of a smirk in its voice. I think we can make an exception here to keep you from being committed to an asylum. The spiky-haired boy rolled his eyes. Oh, funny, you're a real comedian, but I ain't got any better ideas. Why not? I still can't believe him doing this. Naruto glanced over to where Ino was walking beside him on the way to Setsuna's restaurant. Come on, even if you don't believe me, why pass up a free meal? The kunoichi bristled at that. What, do I look like a beggar? I can get free meals at home, yeah, but can you get free meals of grade? A ramen? Trust me, my aunt's restaurant has a great cook. He sucks at playing cards, but he can cook like nobody's business. Ino couldn't help but smile at that. Only Naruto would consider ramen to be gourmet cuisine, but something he had said just now was still bothering her. You say you have an advanced bloodline, and that's how you can talk to animals, but which parent did you get it from? Eve never even heard of a clan that can do that. Careful, Naruto, don't want to disobey dad's orders and spout off that you're the son of a Hokage. Naruto hated to lie, especially now that he was trying to convince Ino he wasn't crazy, but his father's words had been clear. He was not to just tell people who and what he was for merely personal reasons without being able to talk to Erasure. He couldn't figure out if talking to the blonde girl counted as personal. Why bother taking the risk of angering his father? Well, he began scratching his head. That's the weird part. Eve never known who my parents were, and nobody wants to tell me when I ask. All it takes to activate my bloodline limit is the user's belief that the wild animals in the forest aren't just mindless creatures but living, thinking, feeling beings. So I'm sitting there in the forest a little while back, and I started to wonder what it'd be like if all that birdsong was really birds trying to tell each other something like we do. Before I know it, I'm hearing voices instead of chirping, and now I got the problems of an entire forest firmly planted on my shoulders. Ino looked skeptical as head figured, even assuming I believe that, why wouldn't the animals have told you at Least which side of your family gave you the bloodline. Limit so you could research it yourself. Wild animals don't see much to like about humans. It'll leave you to figure out why, but it means they don't take much stock in remembering our names. Their memories are more focused on what's going on in their world. It didn't exactly help that most of the animals that knew my parents personally are dead. I asked all I could, but I could only get vague physical descriptions, and if the people in the village weren't gonna answer me when I asked about names, they sure as hell ain't gonna help me with matching a name to a vague face. Why not? Isn't it a valid question? You couldn't even ask Hokagesima. Eve tried Naruto's side, but even he always says he's too busy, which was technically true. Naruto had discovered who his parents were directly from erasure, and the third had simply admitted it every other time before, like when he was in the Hokage's office for some prank or fight. The old shinobi had stonewalled him. That at least had been understandable. Erasure had asked the third not to tell anybody, least of all Naruto. The reactions he got from the rest of the village were less clear, and Naruto figured he'd better let Ino know about it. Don't ask me about the village. Either I never killed anybody or did anything some paint or glue couldn't fix, but people seem to hate me anyway. It's like there's some kind of conspiracy to shut me out of everything. Ino knew that much. Naruto had been an outcast well before their days at the academy, when other children were having playdates in preschool. He had always been on his own, but there was a difference between not knowing who your parents were and being able to talk to animals all of a sudden. I still say you're gonna have to do better than some weird, I just believe explanation to make me think you're not a lunatic. Naruto made a noise that was halfway between a growl and a snarl. Oh, forget it, I'm hungry, let's get something to eat, and then he'll start over from the beginning, maybe repeating itll get you to change your mind. Slinger Ozaki made a face as Naruto stepped into Setsuna's restaurant. Come to collect on that poker game, kid. Naruto just grinned. He hadn't known his aunt's former boss or her fellow waitress Miki for long, but hanging around them since Setsuna had arrived had given him 3 times the family head had before. He enjoyed their company. When Slinger wasn't pestering him about ninjutsu or trying to win a bet, sure, unless you feel like you want to go for double or nothing. Old man, a feral grin spread over Slinger's face, and the broad-shouldered cook produced a deck of cards from one of his apron pockets. Is that so? Okay, hey, race the rules. 7 card stud deuces and jokers. Wild the frizzy-haired waitress sighed as she saw her former boss getting ready to go further into debt. Slinger, don't you think you're already in a deep enough hole? Come on, that was beginner's luck. He can't beat the master card shark twice in a row. Shinobi and chef sat down at the first open table and cards began to fly. It took all of 10 minutes for their impromptu game to end. So let's see, that's 20 bowls of ramen, the scroll about Stone Village Jutsu's 10 new kunai, and the deed to your apartment you owe me on top of the 5 bowls of ramen I came to collect on. Prove it. Hey, you're the one with the rules card. Straight flush beats. A full house. Naruto dear, couldn't you take a little pity on him? You know how Slinger is at poker. Naruto shrugged, looking up to see a pleading expression on Mickey's face. The red-haired woman reminded him of a cross between the Hinata of old and the one that had emerged during the preliminary matches, and she was much easier to get along with than either Slinger or Setsuna. Oh, why not? Fine. He can keep the kunai and the apartment. I already got a house behind Naruto. Slinger and Mickey 4 equals eyes. Sweat drops rolled down the heads of a kunoichi, 2 ferrets, and a raven. Slinger wore a distinctly sour expression as he and Mickey brought out 5 large bowls of ramen to Naruto's table, which the blonde boy noticed. Slinger, I kicked your butt fair and square. You better not have spit in the ramen or something. Mickey giggled, and the cook grumbled something unintelligible. Honestly, Naruto, you know, I wouldn't let him do that. I know you wouldn't. Aunt Mickey, sore loser man behind you is a different story. The ebon shadow looked over at the steaming bowls laid out on the table and hopped off the table. It looks clean. At any rate, it'll be off now. For my meal, speaker, you ain't staying to eat. Unfortunately, I cannot eat human food like Lord Yama and Itachi can. I will be waiting for you at the Uzumaki house when you have finished. Suit yourself, Shadow. This is good stuff. I'm sure it is. Nevertheless, my taste runs more to carrion. Well, everybody's got their quirks. See you on the way back out. The raven hopped over to an open window, spread its wings, and flew out of the restaurant. Ino's curiosity perked up again. It helped that she was already done with her ramen. Way back out. Where are you supposed to be going? Actually, Naruto muttered, pointing to Itachi, who he had handed a bowl of ramen to. That's where Lazybones here was supposed to help me out. I'm looking for an oasis near the Wind Country border to resolve one of those forest problems I told you about. Only problem is there ain't any detailed area maps, so I got no idea where I'm supposed to go. Figured if anyone would know about a rumor in the forest affair, it would. Is that all you need to know? I could tell you that much, Naruto Chopsticks halfway to his mouth stopped dead in his tracks, joined by both of the ferrets. Are you serious? You know how to get to the oasis? The kunoichi muttered a few curses under her breath. She knew how to get there all right, each and every step of the 6 miles it took each way to travel there from her house. For some odd reason, Yamanaka Inoshi believed meditation in that godforsaken place actually helped the Shintenshin work better, and if there was one thing Ino's father was strict about, it was improving the family jutsu. If you go 6 miles straight northeast from my house, you'll hit it eventually. My dad always makes us go out there to meditate, you know, because of the Shintenshin. Yeah, your bloodline limit, right? Plus you got that funky move you busted out against Sakura. Whatcha call that again? The Dream Weaver. Ino wasn't sure what surprised her more, the fact that Naruto knew her family's ability or the fact that he still remembered the techniques of someone not in his team before she could say anything. The blonde boy continued to talk. I gotta say, that was pretty cool. You nearly had her broken down into a quivering mush, and you barely had to lift a finger. Why would he say that about his own teammate? I thought Naruto was in love with her. Should you be saying that about Sakura? I mean, you're on the same team. Why would you compliment me instead of her? Naruto shook his head. Who said I was on her team anymore? Now you're making even less sense than before. How plain do I have to make it? I quit Team 7 and resigned from Kakashi Sensei's command effective the day after the preliminary matches. Ino's jaw would have dropped all the way down to the table if that had been physically possible. How is that possible? You can't just up and change teams. Genin don't have that right. True, but when I pass the Chunin exam I ain't gotta worry about that, do I? And what if you don't pass? Naruto shrugged. Hokagesima said, head look into placing me with a team that someone got promoted out of, but worst case I go back with Sasuke and Sakura. Still, it ain't like I'm gonna worry about that. I'm working my ass off during this break, and I'm gonna pass. I have to. This was certainly a change from the way Shed seen him act in the forest. Why would he suddenly want to get away from his teammates so much? Is it really that important? For once, the Hyper Genin actually looked serious, catching Ino's attention. Yeah, I say so. Why, you've got a great team. You guys can handle just about anything. You're right and you're wrong. We can handle a lot, but we're no team. Sakura's fixated on Sasuke. Sasuke doesn't take notice of anybody, and I ain't too fond of either of them. We just look like a team because me and Sasuke wind up having to pull Sakura's butt out of trouble so often. That's no way to work, Ino. If the 3 of us are gonna grow and become stronger, being kept together is only gonna slow us down. We don't have enough in common to make it work, right? So someone has to go. Just happens that I was the first one to have the idea. Ino shrugged, and as she did, her eyes drifted over to where Lord Yama and Itachi were both chowing down on their ramen. Were the animals the reason why Naruto was acting so strangely? The kunoichi resolved to find out what was going on. You still haven't convinced me. You're not nuts. Naruto, who would be crazy enough to leave their team just on a whim, except someone who thinks he can talk to animals. Naruto stacked his second bowl of ramen inside the empty bowl that had just polished off, shrugging his shoulders. What else am I supposed to do? Tell them all to line up and do a dance for you? Is it so hard to believe a bloodline limit could give somebody this ability? It ain't like I got something to gain by making people think him nuts. Too busy arguing. Naruto and Ino failed to notice Itachi finishing up his ramen and slipping underneath the table all too soon. However, Naruto heard the ferret's voice through the wood. Hey Naruto, tell her pink panties are out of style. All the girls in the village switched to white ones months ago. Ino looked up in surprise as the blonde boy spit out an entire mouthful of soup. Are you nuts, Itachi? I'm not gonna tell her that. Tell me what did he say? Naruto hemmed and hawed before answering tentatively. You don't want to know. Ino's response was dripping with sarcasm. Oh, I get it, trying to cover your ass. Huh, I'm warning you, you want like it. She really wasn't in the mood to be played with like some blonde bimbo, which she wasn't, no matter how many times Sakura said it. Oh, come on, prove it already, or let me go home. Naruto sighed and mumbled something quickly. Hesdermpikpanis, what did you say? I couldn't hear you. He said you're wearing pink panties. All right. Ino's only reaction was to blink her wide stunned eyes several times, and then calmly pick up her empty bowl, which soon bounced off Naruto's forehead with an audible thwack. Looking on, Mickey winced, and Slinger chuckled. Now I'm really glad we got plastic stuff instead of porcelain. Hey, I said you weren't gonna like it. Whatcha, chucking a bowl at me for? First you come to my house acting like a crazed maniac, and now you're telling your pet to peek up my skirt. Forget crazy, you're just a pervert. It was Naruto's turn to bristle now. Standing up, he slammed his hands down onto the table, palms down, a loud crack echoing through the room. You've been sitting here the entire time. I'm not a damn psychic. If I'd told him to go down there, you would have heard me say it. You know what, forget it. Why should I have to explain any of this to you or anyone else? Nobody in this village cares what I think or what I've done. All I am to you people is a demon, a pervert, or just plain crazy. No matter what I do, everyone finds another reason to hate me. Think whatever you want, Ino, but I'm not gonna be around to hear it. Eve got better things to do with my time. Have a nice life. Before she could say anything, Naruto had wheeled about on one heel and vanished, the ferret scampering along behind him. Ino sat there for a while, not moving, thinking about The situation over again, the more she reviewed what Naruto had said, the more something came back to her. The wild animals in the forest aren't just mindless creatures, but living, thinking, feeling beings. Anything like that would have a mind of its own by nature, just like a human. Had the ferret really gone down there on its own like Naruto had said? If it had, she owed the other genin an apology. And maybe, just maybe, her belief. Dear Naruto sounded angry, but I think he was really more unhappy than anything else. He doesn't have many friends. Ino turned to see Mickey holding a tray and clearing the empty bowls off the table. But we're not friends, just acquaintances. Really? The waitress sighed, shaking her head. That's a shame. I haven't known Naruto very long. But if he's anything like his aunt, he's a good boy. Even if he doesn't always look like it, he's nice to me. Anyway, you really should try to trust him, at least even if the two of you don't become friends. I think that would help him. Mickey looked over at Slinger for a little support. After some hesitation, the cook chimed in. She's right, the kid's a hyper little punk, and he probably cheats at cards, but he doesn't complain when I bug him about jutsus and crap. A no-talent slag like me won't ever learn. Hell, he tries to help me get it anyway. A lot of people could stand to learn from him. Yamanaka Ino looked down at where her bowl had been sitting. Was she one of those people? The ebon shadow looked up from its perch on the Uzumaki's roof as Naruto leapt down from the tree's Itachi on his shoulder. The young speaker hefted the bag of survival gear that was on his back and nodded up at his avian friend. Let's get going. Hearing the curt tone in Naruto's voice, the raven guessed what had happened. I take it the human girl still does not believe you. I don't want to talk about it. Let's just head out and find Moon Gazer. That at least I can handle. Even the bird knew when to back off and let things simmer down. Then let us be off. I'll say this much for Ino, she's narrow-minded, but she gives great directions. Naruto Itachi and the ebon shadow had been on the move for some time, hampered by the lack of trees to jump off like in the forest. With Naruto's foul mood not improved by the journey, the last few hours had been spent mostly in silence. Now, as a stand of palm trees loomed before them, the young Leaf Nin had finally spoken. Indeed, I can see moonlight shining off the water. If Moon Gazer really is still alive, we are getting close. Finally, a ferret could die of thirst out here. Come on, Itachi, it's the middle of the night. You want to bitch about thirst out here? Do it at noon. As boy raven and ferret began to continue forward, a voice rang out in the darkness. Halt, if you value your lives, not one to be challenged in his duties. The raven chief snapped back a response. Who dares challenge the presence of the mother's chosen? Speak your name and state your business, or else be gone. Naruto grinned, fishing a lighter, some rags, and a tree branch from the bag he was dragging behind him, now full of gear and firewood. Temper shadow ain't like Moon Gazer, needs more incentive to head for the hills. Wrapping the rag around the branch, Naruto lit his makeshift torch, revealing a wolf standing at the edge of the water. Just as he was about to greet the animal, the ebon shadow spoke softly. Do not be hasty, speaker. That is not Moon Gazer. What? I thought he was the one they were all talking about. Moon Gazer was male, that wolf is female. The wolf that had spoken bowed its head and spoke again, this time in a softer voice. If you have come for my mate, you will not find him. Naruto and the ebon shadow glanced at each other before the speaker responded. Your mate? I thought Moon Gazer was disgraced and in exile. Where is he? If we can't find him here, you will not find him anywhere. He has been gone from this world for 3 years. He's dead. Well, that's just flipping great. Bloodclaw's gonna be pissed. Bloodclaw, what would the Lord of the Crimson Moon want with Moon Gazer? He is the reason that we came here, and not the mountains or forest. A question first, if I may. We were under the impression that none of the Golden Moon's family or retainers had followed Moon Gazer into exile. Who exactly are you? The female wolf, her coat a blend of black and gray, lay down by the water's edge and looked up at the moon. I am the mate of Moon Gazer, the true lord of the forest among the tribe. I was known as Swift Wind. When the ebon shadow spoke again, it was in a hushed, stunned tone. It seems we are in the presence of two ghosts tonight. Your father reported you as dead, my lady. Swift Wind's retort oozed sarcasm and hinted at bitter memories. How else would he deal with a daughter's rebellion? The mighty shadow chaser, lord of the hidden Fang clan, who would rather have seen me dead than with Moon Gazer after his fall. So that's it, the Golden Moon clan is finished for someone who had delivered such bad news. Swift Wind sounded oddly calm when she answered. Hardly. The clan is as strong as it ever was. Naruto snorted. Yes, sure, we're gonna end anarchy among every clan in the tribe with a ghost who tucked his tail between his legs to save his ass. You can't talk about my father that way. Take it back, human. A smaller wolf emerged from the shadow of the trees, standing beside Swift Wind, teeth bared in feral rage. The ebon shadow chuckled. So the clan does live after all. Moon Gazer's son, I assume. What shall we call him? I named him Deathstrike so that he would remember his duty. Naruto scratched his head at that. Come again, to strike down the shame of the Golden Moon clan and restore the honor of his ancestors. Fitting, considering the circumstances, my lady. There is no time to tarry. Would you allow your son to take his father's place in what we had come to request of him? Swift Wind raised her head and looked directly at Naruto. If the chosen so wishes, let him ask it of my son. Deathstrike is old Enough to make his own decisions. Naruto glanced over at the young wolf still snarling at him, although Swift Wind had subtly placed herself between boy and cub. Seems we've got a problem here. Deathstrike, you want me to stop saying your father was a coward, but the truth is the truth. I could no more lie to you than I could any of the tribal chiefs. If you want to change what's coming out of my mouth, you're gonna have to do it yourself. I'm not the one you need to be growling at. Save it for the clans. What would you know about it? My father was always ready to help the animals at this oasis. He was no coward to you. Maybe not, you never saw that side of him, and your mother hasn't had reason to tell you differently, but think about it. Would you be out here if the clans hadn't had a good reason to want him gone? Bravery without logic or smarts is useless, even to a wolf. I think all I know is what Eve heard. Human, you wouldn't understand. You probably have a father who can tell you things and help you train and everything. Don't be so sure, cub. What do you mean? Naruto rose slowly, pulling more wood out of his bag and laying it in a small circle, piling rocks around the outside. After the circle was complete, the genin lit the improvised campfire with his torch. In the light of the dancing flames, Deathstrike could see the odd expression on the human's face. Ask your mother. Ask her what happened to my mother the day your father turned tail and ran. Ask her what became of my father then, if you still have the gall to tell me. Moongazer was no coward. I'll have nothing more to say because you're a lost cause. Mother Swiftwind bowed her head, looking out over the water. 12 years passed. Harukasama and the fourth Hokage died to save both the humans and the forest from the nine-tailed demon fox. The Chosen has never known either of his parents. Moongazer was your father. You want him to be a hero, a good guy. I get it, believe me, but you can't just try to invent things that aren't true. Deathstrike, everyone's got stuff they ain't proud of. If you just ignore that, you're twisting that person into whatever you want them to be. That's no way to honor someone's memory, least of all your own father. Naruto grinned up at the sky before continuing. You show me someone who's perfect and I'll show you a jackass who won't admit to his own faults. Not 10 miles away atop a cliff in the same desert, Uchiha Sasuke sneezed. So what do you want me to do? It's not really me, cub, it's the other tribes that need you to step up. Every time I talk to a wolf, I hear you talking about being the rightful rulers of the forest. Well, let me tell you, your people are doing a lousy-ass job of ruling. Tribes are being hunted to extinction, living in fear, getting ready to unite against the wolves. You can stop it. Your mom's already told you how. The question is, how badly do you want it? Do you want to redeem your dad? Do you even have to ask? No, I guess not. Can you fight, cub? I guarantee you the clans ain't gonna take anyone from the Golden Moon back without a battle. Swift Wind sighed. I have taught him what I could, but I am not the fighter my mate was. Truthfully, I fear for my son's safety. Naruto thought about it and then turned to the raven that sat by the fire. Shadow, I need you to head into the forest and find Bloodclaw. Explain the situation to him and do what you can to get him out here. If he was really serious about wanting to bring the Golden Moon back, there's no better time for him to prove it than right here, right now. I suspect he will probably be more willing than if you had asked him to see Moongazer. What will you do in the meantime? Naruto's only response was to form a hand seal henge. Immediately a male wolf replaced the blonde boy, looking much like Bloodfang had in Arashi's memories. Me, hey, I don't know jack about wolf fighting, so the least I can do is give the kid a practice target. Just try and get back quick, will ya? I've got my own battles to train for, and there ain't much time left. I will do what I can without another word. The raven leapt into the sky, great wings beating a path back towards the forest. Are you sure 3 days of training is enough? Bloodclaw, you said the proof of Moongazer's bravery was to defeat a leader from every clan. No way Deathstrike is ready for a challenge like that, even with your help. The old wolf shook his head, looking back behind Naruto to where the young wolf and his mother followed. If enough of my brothers are with me, I should be able to make the test somewhat easier than normal. The cub will still need to endure many things, but if he is a true scion of the Golden Moon Clan, he should prevail. It's your show, but understand that if he loses, I'll intervene to keep him from getting killed. The cub's had enough hardship in his life as it is, and Swiftwind too agreed. If you will excuse me, then I will go and speak to as many of the clan leaders as I can before the meeting begins. You do that. Naruto sat down on a fallen log as the old clan leader moved off into the forest, looking over at Deathstrike. The speaker grinned. Well, you've got one last decision to make. Head back to the oasis or stay here and wait for the clan leaders to arrive. I'm here, aren't I? You can stop trying to make me look like your image of my father. Not usually serious. Naruto's grin disappeared. Just understand something. It's your life, cub. You want to improve your father's image, do it. But when it's over, let it go. The Golden Moon Clan is yours now, and you ought to run it how you see fit. Don't go trying to kill yourself making everyone else see your father the way you do. Rule em well enough, and there memories of him will change. They'll see him in you. What about you? You were talking about your father all the time in the desert. It sounded like you wanted to be just like him. True, but I got an advantage. Deathstrike, the clan leaders look at you, and they can see what you are, what clan you represent. Wish I could say the same for people in the village. Nobody there knows or cares who my father is. I got nothing to live up to but my own expectations. Hell of a lot easier if you ask me. Oh sure, rub it in. Enough, Deathstrike, I can hear the clan leaders coming. You must be ready, and remember what Bloodclaw taught you. Yeah, kick ass and take names. Couldn't have said it better myself. Once all the formalities of a meeting among Wolf clan leaders were out of the way, Bloodclaw walked to the center of the circle. The tribe had formed. We are gathered here on a momentous day. The Golden Moon clan has returned to the tribe, ready to test its worth, to lead us all. I ask that Lord Shadow Chaser speak for the tribe and announce what the test shall be. A smaller pitch-black wolf emerged from the circle, looking askance at Swiftwind almost uncomfortably. Naruto noted the wolf's expression and grinned. Didn't expect her to come back at all, and especially not as the mother of the potential tribal chief. Did we? Bloodclaws got a knack for public humiliation. As the one who claims to be Golden Moon is but a child, he will not be required to prove his strength as an adult male wolf with the strongest 5 clans. Will put forth champions, the strongest son of their leaders. The challenger will fight them all in turn, and if he manages to be victorious, he faces one final task that will be revealed if and when the time comes, which I doubt. Deathstrike laughed as his grandfather finished speaking. Easy to talk down to someone you don't have to fight, isn't it, you toothless old weasel? Shadow Chaser sneered at the younger wolf's insults. Why, they believe you are the hope of the tribe. I will never understand one as uncouth, uncultured, and foolish as you could never be a scion of the Golden Moon clan. You are obviously the spawn of some mongrel dog. My disgrace of a daughter lowered herself to be with in the desert. Hey, I didn't say anything about your smarts. I wanted to spare your dignity. You had the chance to look like a hero to my mother and me. You chose to be a jackass instead. Don't blame me when I take that public. The clan leader stalked back to the edge of the circle without a word. A wolf about Deathstrike's size replaced him, howling a challenge. I am Footpad, the son of Grim Prowler, leader of the Shadowstalker clan. I have proved my worth in battle 17 times with the hated bears. Footpad's introduction was cut off as Deathstrike crouched slightly, adopting the battle stance Bloodclaw had taught him. Who gives a damn how many times you've been in battle with a bunch of bears? You've never fought me, that's all I know, so shut up with the boasting. Come and back it up or stop wasting my damn time. Watching the 2 young wolves posture and Naruto whispered an aside to Bloodclaw, should he be so cocky right off the bat? Footpad's got way more experience, and it's against larger and stronger opponents. The old wolf chuckled at the confused expression on the speaker's face. Hardly when wolves fight bears. It is not unknown. Footpad does have experience, but it is mostly with fighting as part of a group, not alone, as he is the son of a clan leader. I doubt he has actually had to face down a bear from the front yet. He will have been assigned to restrict the bear's mobility by slashing tendons in its limbs or acting as a decoy at best. If you say so, have faith. Deathstrike is Golden Moon, the blood of our common ancestors. The great dire wolves of the ancient times runs strongest within the Golden Moon clan. They are stronger, faster, and have more stamina than any other clan. Even at Deathstrike's age, he will prevail, even if he only knows the basics of what I will eventually teach him. Well, that's why I called you in on this. Let's see what he does with it. Indeed, you call a fight where one risks his life irrelevant? Yeah, when the one who's spewing hot air about it couldn't have possibly taken out 17 bears all by his lonesome. Stop making yourself sound like such a badass when all you've been doing is helping course the bear. I could kick your tail right now, and even am not dumb enough to think I can take a bear or do anything useful against it to prove my worth. I have had enough of this insolence. You will fall before me. Deathstrike yawned and grinned at his opponent. Promises, promises, bring it on. Bloodclaw smiled as Footpad charged Deathstrike, doing the same. He has grasped the basics of combat without my teachings. Unnerve your foe, and you will be victorious. Brother Bloodfong, your skills have bred true after all. Too bad they skipped a generation. Within seconds, the 2 wolves had met Footpad, coming away with a nice parallel set of claw marks on his right flank. Well, you can run, but can you fight? You'll never take out a bear. Coming heating at him more on the smaller wolf's only answer was a howl of rage, and another charge tried the nice approach, but I guess it's lost on you. You're just gonna have to go down. Footpad's second charge was stopped cold as Deathstrike slipped underneath his enraged foe and slammed his front paws upwards, catching his opponent on the chin and knocking him down. Deathstrike turned to Bloodclaw, a hint of a gleam in his eye, the bloodlust that was in the soul of every dire wolf. Say the word, and he's dead. You never said whether or not this was a lethal combat. Teacher Bloodclaw nodded. Lord Shadowchaser did not finish his description. These fights are not to be to the death. You have beaten him. Leave it at that. The next challenger will come forward. Deathstrike spared his next foe. The insults head peppered Footpad with this one said nothing and walked up slowly, sizing up the Golden Moon scion. You have nothing to revile me with. I save taunts for the ones they'll work on. The last one was a dimwit. You walk like Bloodclaw, like someone who's seen real battle. Of course, got a name. Tough guy. Red Shadow, eldest son of Bloodclaw, leader of the Crimson Moon clan. I do not need to boast of my accomplishments as Footpad did. You will see for yourself. Looking forward to it. Teacher ain't given me much to work with, but ITLL have to do. Both wolves surged forwards, Red Shadow easily stepping aside from Deathstrike's opening claw swipe, leaving claw marks of His own on the challenger's flank as head done to footpad. Do not simply parrot what my father has taught you. I know all of that. Be original, and not just aggressive. Deathstrike grinned through the fire that was burning his left side, claw slashes gleaming with his blood in the sunlight. Are you an examiner or a tutor? Both. My father wishes for you to end the chaos, so I will help you grow, but I will not let you have what you want unless you prove that. You are more than a mere courageous brute. Come. Show me why the golden moon is supposed to be strongest among us. Gladly. Very techniques. Don't just come at him with something he knows, or do that and change just as he reacts, charging as he had against footpad. Deathstrike watched as Red Shadow crouched to leap aside and jumped upwards, instead spinning in midair. He caught his opponent in the same spot as Red Shadow had marked him, landing in the same ready stance. Bloodclaw's son nodded, not seeming to notice the shallower scars on his side. As befitted a veteran fighter, you learn quickly, but can you continue to grow? Deathstrike laughed, a howl of mirth bursting forth. Well, see, come on, I ain't through with you yet. Naruto watched as the fighting continued, Deathstrike finally getting Red Shadow to surrender after a spectacular front-rear combination slash that had laid open a huge stretch of the older wolf's back and right leg. The other three opponents had been even tougher sons of clan leaders that had been older and more experienced than even Red Shadow. Somehow what Bloodclaw had predicted was coming true. Deathstrike was still on his feet, bleeding from every part of his body, but standing, barely looking over at Shadow Chaser. He gasped out a challenge. 5 down. Old weasel, please tell me you're the last test, so I can rip you apart. It'd be the perfect ending to a long day. The old wolf snarled, the faintest hint of a sneer in his voice. Me, I would sooner dine on a scavenger like that ferret than dirty my paws with your blood. On Naruto's shoulder, Itachi stirred with an insult of his own. Try it, toothless wonder, you couldn't catch me with an hour's head start. The speaker silenced his sidekick with a low hiss. Stay out of this, Itachi. The rebel clans would love any excuse to get us all out of their hair. We gotta let the cub do his thing. This is his fight all the way. Bloodclaw stepped forward silently until he stood face to face with his pupil of 3 days. I agree. This bickering is useless. I will tell you what. Your final test is Deathstrike, and that would be you will challenge me, pass, and you prove your courage and bloodline to us all. Naruto's eyes shot open, and he held swift wind back. The female wolf had tensed as if to spring forward and defend her son. Hang on, Bloodclaw was counting on this. He's one to follow his word. Something is being planned. Wait for it, and trust him. You ask me to trust the one who broke my mate's spirit and turned him into the wretched creature he became. He's not the same anymore. This is a guy who's so broken up about what he did and what happened to the forest that he thinks of nothing but dying, and right now he's Deathstrike's only shot at getting out of this clearing alive. Trust that not your memories. Very well. Deathstrike looked through a red film that was quickly crusting over his eyelids and clouding his vision. Whether it was his own blood or that of his opponents didn't matter now. It was down to one last fight against a foe even stronger than Red Shadow and the others had been. But what other choice is there? The thought of turning around and going back to the oasis had never crossed his mind. Yeah, right, be king of the desert rather than lord of the forest. Some trade-off. I'm not going back. I don't know what your game is, teacher, but if you think I'm going to become my father, then you have the wrong wolf, as you so eloquently put it to footpad. Cub, you should bring it on. Talk is cheap. What was the point? He couldn't win, not even if had been in perfect condition. Rather than beat up, bleeding and tired from taking out 5 wolves that had all been older than him. But then maybe that's the whole point. Something made him look over at Naruto, but the human's face was inscrutable. No expression at all other than a faint gleam of amusement in the speaker's eyes. What's so funny? Then it hit him. This is the 10th exam question. Or at least it's Bloodclaw's version of the 10th exam question Naruto mentioned in his life story. If I'm right, I may be able to win after all. If not, well, I knew what I was getting into when I accepted the challenge. Naruto saw comprehension dawn on the young wolf's face and grinned. Now try and come up with a suitably corny and stirring speech and make the rebels see what you really are. Win them over, and you win your place as chief. You think you can cow me into running away like my father? Moongazer isn't the only one. I share my blood with my grandfather was Bloodfang, lord of the forest Eve, come to restore the glory that was his. And if Footpad, Red Shadow, the other punks, and my weasel of a grandfather couldn't stop me, neither will you. The Golden Moon clan is mine, the tribe is mine, and bloody beaten or not, I will fight for it. So come on, someone's going down, and it won't be me. Without a hell of a battle, gathering himself to charge, Deathstrike stopped cold when all but 2 of the clan leaders rolled over, presenting their throats upwards, laughing, all except for Shadow Chaser and Bloodclaw. Anyway, what's the meaning of this? Naruto chuckled. You need it written out for you, cub. To the victor goes the spoils, the respect, and the power. You win. Your answer to the final exam question was correct in a manner of speaking. Bloodclaw nodded, smiling at his student. The chosen speaks wisely. It is one thing to face everyday battle and fight when you are at your peak confidence and power at their youthful maximum. It is quite another to face the things that must be done even if they cost you your life or something personally important. Such is dignity, that is true courage, what is demanded from the lords of the forest. You have grasped what your father regrettably could not. I recognize the challenger's claim, and I recognize the Golden Moon Clan Shadow Chaser gritted his teeth and said the same before wheeling and stalking out of the clearing, not followed by the rest of his clan. All around the young wolf, the other clan leaders declared their recognition, each voice louder than the next. Naruto grinned over at Swift Wind, who had visibly relaxed. Satisfied, my lady. Relieved is a better term. I had held out hope for this day all this time, but I think even I had given up by the time you and Lord Shadow arrived. Never have I been so glad to be proven wrong. We all have our bad times, just makes the good times even sweeter. Although I think your dad might not agree, he is stubborn, but I know somewhere in his heart he is proud of his grandson, even if he is also too proud to admit he was wrong to treat us as he did. Hell come around. If only to take some of the credit for giving the kid his genes, I suppose so. Naruto looked over at Bloodclaw again to see the old clan leader standing by Deathstrike's side, propping the exhausted cub up. Well, old warrior, am I fit for my job title or not? Absolutely, you have my thanks, and those of the clans chosen. We will accept the blessing and grant you our power and trust as we did Haruka-sama and Kotorasama before her. You isn't Deathstrike the chief? I, but the cub is young yet. A few of the older warriors will act as his regents and tutors until he is truly ready to assume a leadership role. What is important for now is that he has restored the esteem of his clan and regained the respect of his subjects. The rest will come much more easily. That's the hope. Anyhow, how do I give the blessing? You already have, by uniting us. It varies from tribe to tribe, of course, but it basically boils down to whether the chief feels you have done something to benefit their people. I think you have long since done that. Looking over at a group of grizzled old wolves, his age, Bloodclaw looked a question over to them, and each nodded in turn. Now let me see if I remember what my brother said to Haruka-sama. Once upon a time I am Bloodclaw, and I represent the wolves before the mother. Her chosen has come before us and blessed us with his light and wisdom, the compassion in his heart and respect in his soul. This we accept with humblest thanks, and grant in return our power and our champion. Henceforth we are at his command, willing servants and allies. Let the bond be made. The gathered wolves howled their agreement, the forest ringing with sound. As they did so, Naruto felt a subtle tingling in his right arm, a little like heat being applied. Looking down at his arm, he saw something glowing on it, bright light shining from a patch of skin, suddenly flashing and resolving into a single character, Ukami the wolf. But before he could say or do anything, the character began to glow again, and suddenly the tingling became a burning sensation, feeling as though the fires of the sun itself were scorching his arm. The blond boy dropped to one knee, holding his arm to his side. Halfway across the forest, the ebon shadow felt the huge power surge and smiled to himself. Well done, Naruto. I accept the blessing you bestowed when you accepted me as lorekeeper. I am the ebon shadow, and I represent the ravens before the mother. Henceforth I am at the chosen's command, willing servant and ally. Let the bond be made in his mountain home. Even Lord Yama felt the power rising from the forest. The ferret chief burped, remembering what the young human had done for him, feeding him and showing him respect, among other stuff, as very few speakers had ever done for a smaller tribe like the ferrets. I could get to like eating that ramen stuff. Why not, Naruto? I accept the blessing you gave me when you fed me the bowl of ramen. I am Lord Yama, and I represent the ferrets before the mother. Henceforth I am at the chosen's command, willing servant and ally. Let the bond be made. Back in the clearing, Naruto stared at the ground, resolutely trying not to scream from the searing pain in his arm. His gaze was so intently fixed downwards that he failed to notice two more characters appearing on his right arm, Karasu Raven and Itachi Weasel/Ferret. What the hell's going on? This thing's killing me. Bloodclaw's voice was solemn, the weight of age evident in his tone. It is a reminder chosen to let you know that we are not simple tools, but living beings which feel pain and die as you do. The pain is temporary, but your duty and ours is not. I implore you to remember that. Naruto gritted his teeth and forced out a word or two of his own. I get it, old warrior, just make sure the kid does too. Bloodclaw inclined his battle-scarred head. He that is the chief must know such things. I will teach him as well too, since he is our champion. When you summon the wolf, you will summon him. How do I do that? Produce some of your blood and put it on the mark of the tribal champion you wish to summon. Place the hand with the blood on it on the ground, and the champion will be summoned to your side. Then, depending on how much chakra you wish to expend, the champion will grow in stature. I have heard of some chosen being able to get their champions to be up to 50 of your human feet in height. Even then, because of the power the mother gives you, the chakra expense is slight so long as you use this power wisely to do your duty. The animals of this forest will never fail or overburden you. Do I have to say anything special that I do not remember? It will likely come to you when you attempt to summon a champion. Do you wish to try? You even have to ask. Naruto rose slowly, a fierce pride cutting through the pain in his limb. Biting his left thumb quickly, he blindly swiped his bloody digit over the spot where the mark of the wolves had appeared. As he did, something rushed into his mind. And he knew what to say: as I do my duty, I call on the champion of the wolves to do his. The battle is joined, let the mother's child and chosen fight as one. Ugi Shurzen Kuchios no Jutsu. Ukami secret technique nature summoning. Wolf Deathstrike disappeared from beside Bloodclaw, reappearing next to Naruto. The blonde Genin grinned savagely. Time to grow up, cub. Let's show the world what we're made of. Pouring as much chakra as he could into the bond, he felt between himself and Deathstrike. Naruto watched as the young wolf vanished again, to be replaced by a massive 60-foot-tall version of himself. Cool. I can see the oasis from here. The speaker laughed, any notion of pain vanishing as he looked at the legacy. His mother had left him. Today's a day for celebration, for continuing bloodlines. Damn, if it ain't gonna be fun using mine around them. The assembled heads of the clans raised their heads and howled, not the savage cries of rage that had lately shaken the forest, but a sound of joy and celebration, perhaps the signal that one clan's honor and the hope of the wolves had been restored. Why can't you ever apologize to anyone when you wanna where you wanna? You either have to go find them or wait for the idiot to wake up. Yamanaka Ino could forgive herself for talking to nobody. After all, she was in a crazy boy's hospital room, plus she was going stir-crazy from waiting for Naruto to wake up to let her apologize for snapping at him. Had been found in front of the Konoha hospital the day before, lying next to a huge animal footprint in the ground. Expert hunters had identified it as a wolf's footprint, which had gotten tongues wagging in the village. Those Uzumakis at it again all day long. It was the talk of the town. Naruto was good at many things, being hyper annoying, obnoxious, and loud, for example, but he was a horrible liar. Ino had had him pegged the instant had begun denying he knew what his bloodlines were. Years of dealing with chicamerous excuses and traps had to rub off a little on her. Simple research revealed that Naruto's clan had always been secretive, which explained why so few people knew about them. It also showed that they were master summoners, rumored to be able to talk to animals. It had made her angry that Naruto figured she'd be so gullible, and ashamed that she had called him a pervert and crazy. So here she was waiting to apologize to the blonde boy, and yet on the verge of strangling him. What kind of power did Naruto have that she, Yamanaka Ino, would be reduced to waiting at his bedside like some airhead Sasuke fangirl? Just then, like the cats she loved, Ino's curiosity began quietly stalking her reason. All sorts of mysteries and lurid possibilities presenting themselves. The Uzumaki woman in the village now is Uzumaki Setsuna, and she had one sister, Uzumaki Haruka, that's Naruto's mother, but there's no mention of her marrying anyone before her death. Who is his father that Naruto thinks he has to hide that information? It was an interesting problem. The target of all her questions laid out unconscious before her, in a hospital bed, dead. To the waking world, the reasonable thing would be not to pry. Naruto obviously felt he had to keep it a secret. Unfortunately, at that point, Ino's curiosity pounced from behind a stray brain cell and inflicted a rather bloody, messy death on her reason. Cats tend to have that effect. She had never tried the Dream Weaver on an unconscious target. Her father and Sakura had both been awake, if immobile, when she'd used it on them. Hopefully Naruto's mind would be far easier to dig in for clues while he was asleep. That science said the exact opposite would be the case never entered her thoughts. Lacking reason will lead to such consequences. Discarding the last shreds of doubt in her mind, Ino placed her hands over Naruto's head and quickly began to run through the seals for her signature technique. When she had finished, she took a deep breath and sent her soul outwards through the gate formed by her hands. Ninpuyum Oriko. No Jutsu Dream Weaver. Her life would never be the same again. Pure chaos was the only way Ino could describe what assaulted her. Like Naruto, it was loud screams, yells, and howls were everywhere, and none of the memories were consistent or even visible. In many cases, it was like Sakura's split personality. If that second soul had had memories of its own, there were images that didn't fit Naruto's life, things out of place or long since destroyed in the Leaf Village. As curious as she was, Ino knew survival was her goal. Inoshi had warned her she had to establish control immediately or risk a backlash that would put the victim in control of her memories. Ino didn't have nearly as many secrets as Naruto, but she'd be damned if he'd plow into her soul. That she was prying right now was conveniently forgotten. Every memory was linked together, although the structure varied from person to person. Once Ino latched onto a certain memory and found a gateway into the rest, she could freely search through the target's mind and find what she wanted. She had to do that before Naruto realized what was happening and shut her out. The best kind of opening was a nightmare or something that had been difficult for the target to deal with. If it aroused fear or hatred, the memory was more easily accessible. Constantly intruding on the person's thoughts, it would be simpler for her to slip through and into control. Ino looked around questing for something to grab onto, but found nothing. The upper levels of Naruto's mind, his Most recent memories were too unstable to deal with until she gained control over them all to be safe. She would have to go deeper further into his past, diving downwards. She concentrated on getting as low as possible underneath the swirling mess. After a few seconds, the blonde girl stopped and took a brief glance around. Ino could sense there were fewer and fewer passages down here. A baby wouldn't have had many clear memories. Choosing one, she rushed to a door and yanked it open. Man, who ever heard of a baby with this much hair on his head at birth? Ino stopped short as she heard the memory beginning to play back for her. If you want to complain, you have the baby next time. I'd gladly trade jobs. She peered around the doorway and noticed two people. One lay in a hospital bed, cradling a newborn baby. The other stood beside the bed, looking down at mother and child. Ino recognized the woman from her research, Uzumaki Haruka. That would make the baby Naruto and presumably make the man at the bedside his father, with his head bent down. Ino couldn't tell who it was. When the father looked up, she started, I know that face. Kazama Erashur, the fourth Hokage, the same blue eyes and spiky hairstyle Naruto had also graced his father's features, making Ino wonder why nobody had picked up on the resemblance, or why they'd ignored it so long. Ino took a look at Naruto, who did have a pretty full head of hair for a newborn, and prepared to move on when the fourth spoke again. Aren't you glad you had the kid? After all, got my looks, your voice, great hair like me. He's gonna be special, one of the greatest leafnins ever. Haruka scoffed, looking irritated. Her face cleared when she looked down at Naruto. I mentioned the pros and cons just once, and you think that equals wanting to abort? Not only that, you're talking nonsense. Erashur looked down at her, looking confused. What, just stating an opinion? He's got the genes to be brilliant. Naruto's mother glared back at his father, a spark in her eyes. He is special. This is my son. He was special when I laid eyes on him. No matter what happens from here on out, what are you pinning stupid expectations on him for? To tell the truth, the fourth muttered, scratching his head, I don't really know. I just have this feeling he's got big things ahead in his life. Just take it a day at a time. That's how we all get by. Why should it be any different for our child? The fourth shrugged, glancing back down at his son. When did you get so introspective? It's called growing up, almighty Hokage. You should try it sometime. Ino giggled at the fourth's bewildered expression and prepared to move on, but not before taking a good look back at Naruto's parents, incredibly strong from what she'd heard, and they seemed to be loving enough. She knew why the fourth was dead, but what could have made Haruka leave behind the son she loved so much? Ino looked about and found the door that would give her control. Letting loose a sigh of relief, she smiled. All of Naruto's memories were now under her control. Everywhere she looked, more questions came to mind. If Naruto was related to such important people, why hadn't anyone adopted him, or at least looked after him? If she was going to find out, it might as well be straight from the source. The Ninetales had attacked soon after Naruto's birthday, and Uzumaki Haruka's death date was not long afterwards. If there was a relevant memory, it would be close. Choosing another door on the same level, Ino stepped into the memory and looked around. This time Naruto was in an apartment, lying in a crib and looking around with the curtains drawn. She couldn't tell if this was happening in the day or night. Before very long, she saw the door open. Haruka entered alone, moving slowly toward the crib out of maternity clothes. Ino could see that Naruto's mother was all business. Everything was in its place, from weapons and gear to the slightest hair on her head. This was a woman who took nothing for granted, the type to think everything through before acting. Why make her child an orphan? Upon further glances, Naruto's mother looked haggard, dirt on her face, tears and stains all over her uniform. Ino nodded to herself. This must have been during the Demon Fox's attack. Haruka kept silent for a long time, picking her son up from his crib and looking down at him. Her face was expressionless, but Ino could see something clouding her eyes. Perhaps grief, perhaps resignation. I should have known it was too good to be true. I'd have a child, we would settle down and things would be smooth sailing forever. What could she mean? The care she took in holding Naruto showed nothing but love. It couldn't mean that she resented him. Was it the fourth? The Ninetales. The mood was interrupted when the door opened quietly. Ino glanced at it thoughtfully. You did that when you were afraid to intrude, or just simply scared? Now she knew for certain this was happening during the Ninetales attack. The person who stepped through the door didn't look familiar, but she bore a faint resemblance to someone. The blonde did know who was that girl with the buns in her hair. Tintin Tantano, right? Tenten, her mother, perhaps Haruka-sama. The older woman didn't turn around, still looking at her son. Heard the news? Did you, Tenko? Yes, we drew the task of holding off the Ninetales Kazumasa, and I have already made our preparations. Well, do our best. You will do nothing of the sort. Haruka's response was soft, trying not to startle the baby, but Ino could literally feel the force in the older woman's voice. Uzumaki Haruka was not one to take orders she gave them, and she expected them to be obeyed. Tenten's double started and looked up with a puzzled expression. What do you mean? Haruka stayed where she was, looking only at Naruto. There's going to be enough casualties tonight, and dreams shattered. You and Kazumasa are about to start a family. Can't let that dream die, not while I have the power to keep it safe. How? Haruka's voice sounded tired, but she was resolute in going To fight it alone follow, and you'll regret it. Misawa Tenko's voice faltered, fighting her commander's order. Why would you do that? We're a team, you know, and I know no matter what happens out there, it's a losing battle. A good shinobi doesn't waste resources. That's just the way it is. You and Kazumasa are close combat and ranged weapon specialists. That stuff doesn't work on the Nine Tails. Among our team, I'm the only one who has the resources to damage it and make it back off, which is what's needed. Why drag you into it? We could defend you and help you survive. No offense, but nobody's that strong. Maybe not even the fourth. No need to take that kind of chance. If you fight not to lose, you'll never win. I can't go in there thinking about how to make the demon back off while thinking of how I can stay alive. I'd just fail my task. If that happens, nobody survives. Tenko looked at the baby in Haruka's arms, grasping for some argument to move the other woman. What about Naruto? Can you just leave him behind? Ino felt like slapping the younger Kunoichi. Can't you see she doesn't want to do it? The only thing you're doing is making it harder for her. Her mind is made up. Every word you say about Naruto is like a dagger in her heart. Haruka straightened and looked up to the ceiling. I'd rather die as a shinobi than live and shame my son. Uzumaki's don't break their word ever. Those that do are no longer worthy of the name. Setsuna knew that had she become a genin, she'd never have fulfilled her duties. She left the village to keep from shaming herself. When I took the vow of loyalty, I was swearing that I would be there when the leaf needed me to do what had to be done, even if it killed me. If I back out now, how can I expect my son to keep his word when his time comes? Why would he when his mother broke hers at such a time? Tenko had no response to that. Ino guessed Haruka wasn't the type to let insolence slide. Naruto's mother looked back down to her child, her eyes looking oddly peaceful. Anyway, you forgot it takes two to tango. Pardon my death will give the fourth more time to think of a way to win. When he does hell raise Naruto, I want nothing more than to be there to see him grow up, but for all of Arashi's faults, he'll be a good father. I can feel it. Ino's eyes shot wide open, the irony dawning on her. She couldn't have known because the fourth hadn't even thought of his plan of attack yet. She had no idea he would win by sacrificing his life as well. A lot of things filled her thoughts. How could Naruto be so cheerful with such a story in his past? One parent sacrificing her life to buy time so the other could do the exact same thing. People had never taken the time to really look at him. They saw the way he acted and assumed it was because he was a fool, or worse, how could anyone have known it was because the alternative was this kind of despair? How could they understand it when none of them had faced such a thing? It made her angry, but she wasn't sure why angry. For him, for all the things she'd seen him go through. Angry at the world for being so cruel and cold. Was she angry at herself for never seeing it in him? Maybe it was all of them. Whatever it was, staying in this memory would not help her any. In fact, she got the distinct feeling she was intruding in something that should have stayed private. Rather unlike her, Ino tiptoed out and went looking somewhere else, seeking something happier. It soon became clear that wasn't such a good idea. No matter where she looked, Ino just got angrier. She saw the fourth as he completed the seal on the Nine Tails' teeth, still clenched in bitter hatred of the demon. He left his own son behind to get his revenge. Some hero. She saw the villagers demand Naruto's death, only to be turned away by the third. Kazumasa and Tenko had tried to adopt Naruto that same day, and also been rejected on the orders of the fourth. Taking one last look at him before departing the hospital, he wanted all of us to raise his son so we could be reminded of what we owed him. Big mistake. Nobody listened. The higher up she got, the more years that passed, nothing changed. People scorned Naruto, humiliated him, and he had seldom been able to do anything about it. Ino didn't take solace in not showing up in those memories. She knew she would have done much the same thing. Then maybe it was because she was distracted that something began to draw her in, something powerful. Ino gravitated towards it, looking for something less depressing. Perhaps this was when Setsuna had returned, or when this mysterious Jiraiya person had been seen in the village before too long. She found herself before a sort of abyss, a place where it seemed a gate had once been but was now gone, leaving a perfect rectangular opening in a rocky wall. As she stepped forward, peering in, water splashed around her ankles. What is this place? How nice a visitor I get. So few. Ino stared as a voice sounded in the darkness, but couldn't see a thing. Slowly creeping forward, she heard it speak again. Come closer, child. Cowardice is no quality for a ninja. It felt wrong, strange, and human, yet she couldn't help but keep on coming, as though something was pulling her and controlling her body. She stopped and immediately wished she hadn't. A pair of red eyes stared back at her from the darkness, glowing with lambent energy, glaring hatred into her very soul. This was not Naruto. The whelp is not here. He rarely prefers my company, but then I cannot say I enjoy his either. You, on the other hand, would make a nice snack. A pity to kill one so young, but it must be fate for you to appear before me. Embrace it, if you please. I find those who resist to bestringy. As the voice continued, Ino watched a set of giant claws appear out of the darkness, helpless to react, held in place by sheer terror. Chew on this furball. The kunoichi only barely felt the gust of air as the claws swept by her head, something pushing her out of the way. She heard a loud clang as the claws slammed into a massive gate that suddenly appeared where the Hole in the wall had been a large paper seal. Holding it shut in shock, she looked up to see teeth underneath the red eyes, a face twisted in rage, staring down at a form that had to be her rescuer. Damn you, do you deny me? Even a tiny snack whelp. Ino's head snapped upwards when her rescuer responded. In Naruto's voice, a snack? What are you, a cannibal? Forget it, you aren't getting anything to eat today. But Crow, if you think that little display will make me trust your power and let you fight more often, you've got another thing coming. The voice's response was just a frustrated growl as the eyes and teeth vanished. Ino sighed in relief, but that relief quickly vanished as Naruto turned around and she saw his face looking down on her with irritation. You mind taking us back to the real world? I'd like to talk when I'm in total control of myself. Ino obeyed silently, and the landscape of Naruto's mind vanished. Neither one of them spoke for some time. Ino was too shocked by what she'd seen and Naruto too angry to do much other than stare at the ceiling, for all she'd heard before the kunoichi had a hard time believing that Naruto was actually the vessel of the Nine Tails. Until she had faced the demon herself, Naruto had never known of it until recently, believing himself hated for no reason. Finding out about the demon couldn't have made it better, but he was the same as ever. To borrow a phrase from the Sasuke fans, Naruto was very, very cool facing down a demon for this long with absolutely no fear. Ino recognized strength when she saw it, and Naruto, loudmouth, stubborn and irritating as he was incredibly strong. He was still trying to make friends and advance as a ninja. He respected the Leaf after everything had been through. It couldn't have been easy to forgive everyone for that. Ino probably wouldn't have it if it had been done to her. Why even make friends with them? It was pretty funny thinking about it. Ino had seen what Naruto was capable of. She knew he could easily justify going on a murderous rampage within the village. If anything, they should have been bowing and scraping to him, not Sasuke. She wanted to be his friend, as strange as it had once sounded, not because it was prudent or to keep herself safe. It was because, well, he deserved it. You might not be able to say anything else to justify it, but that said everything. There was just one problem. Ino had just pissed him off quite severely. Naruto didn't know what to think. That Ino was here meant she'd probably come to see him. That was good. That Head had to rescue her from the Nine Tails meant she had gone digging around in his brain. That was bad, if not insane. The whole thing made him jealous. Ino had seen the very things that had always been denied him. Haruka, the short time they had shared as mother and child, why could she see what he could not? But as much as he wanted to be mad at her, something kept coming back to him. She understands. He didn't have to ask to know. Ino understood what he was. The look in her eyes was enough. She was still here, not running for the hills. For someone who had just faced down the Nine Tails, that was surprising. Naruto had friends. He still counted Kakashi Sensei and Sakura and Sasuke when he wasn't being an ass, even Hinata, but people who understood him and gave him the benefit of the doubt. Those were few and far between. Iruka Sensei and Setsuna Pervert, Sannin III, the Ebon Shadow Lord, Yama, Itachi, Bloodclaw, and Deathstrike were about it. Was it worth being angry over something like this and pushing away someone who could join that list? He considered that for a moment and then made his decision. Guess you saw all the gory details. Ino looked at him surprised. Naruto leaned back against the hospital bed's headboard and crossed his arms. Yeah, I'm pissed you did it without asking me, but we can't exactly take it back. Question is, what are you going to do with what you saw? You've been through enough as it is without me adding to your problems. Why would I do anything at all? Naruto arched an eyebrow. This from the girl who chucked a bowl at my head. Ino flushed bright red, remembering the scene she'd made at the restaurant. Before she could answer, she heard someone speak behind her. But why did she understand it when it sounded like a crow cawing? Hardly necessary, Naruto. I would think she came to apologize. Itachi was the one at fault, as I'm sure she understands. Reacting instinctively, Ino responded, that's right. When nobody said anything, Ino looked up. Naruto sat there staring at her jaw slack in disbelief. The blonde girl turned to see the gigantic raven Naruto called the Ebon Shadow perched on the open windowsill. Did she say something to me by chance? I'm no doctor, Naruto muttered, but jumping into my head must have scrambled hers up. Some say something else, and well, check very well. Can you hear me, human? Ino replied, voice shaking a little with uneasiness. Yes, she can hear me, but I cannot understand what she says. It would appear she has an imperfect version of your ability, Naruto snorted, leaning back against the wall. Well, either we're both crazy now or I'm honest. Which one? Ino the kunoichi blushed even harder and mumbled something that sounded suspiciously like sorry. Naruto, never much of a sadist, grinned off. Forget it, I hate apologies, and I'm pretty sure you do too. Now do you trust my word? What an odd thing to say, she thought. With Uzumaki's, it always came back to their word being their bond. Perhaps that was why he hadn't turned against the village. Naruto had friends who had kept their word to trust and defend him, and he was honoring that. Better for her to be in that category. She decided the part of her that said he was cute as a tragic hero she shoved way in the back of her head. The last thing either of them needed now was for this to get emotional. Naruto needed friends, the rest could come later. Yes, that's what I like to hear. Is it wise to have the secret of your bloodlines running around? Naruto cut off Ino's brief look of annoyance by responding for her. She saw everything. I am Shadow, and she still here. That speaks for her guts. It also says she thinks I ain't a demon like others. If my secrets aren't safe in Ino's hands, they'll never be safe. He'll trust her. You might try it too, couldn't hurt. So she will be your human lorekeeper, and I the animal version. Ino looked puzzled by that. What's he mean by lorekeeper? Naruto waved it off with a hand. It's part of my job with the animals. What I do, they assign someone to remember. It was the same with all the Uzumakis who did it before me. I don't need that from humans right now. I'd be pretty happy if they all just stopped treating me like crap. Come on, they don't all do that. Fine, most of them treat me like crap. Why do you think I always wanted to be Hokage? Who has the guts to badmouth the big boss shinobi? Then why do something stupid like quitting your team? That's a Hokage thing to do. You better believe it. Naruto growled. If something's not gonna work, why waste time and make people miserable by forcing it? Why not find a different way that could improve everybody's future? Ino didn't look convinced. If you ask me, it looks more like you threw a tantrum at Kakashi and booked it out of there before he could react. Naruto shrugged. Yeah, there was anger in there, but doing the right thing is my story, and him sticking to it, not saying I'm right, just the way I see things. Ino grinned and pointed to her ears. You see these, Naruto? These are finely tuned bullshit detectors, and they're ringing something fierce right now. Naruto laughed. The first time he'd done that in days. Yeah, better clean him out, cause they're giving you false readings. Remember when you thought I wasn't playing with a full deck? All things are relative, Miss Ino. Surely I am a good reminder of that. Hey, no fair sicking the animal on me when I can't respond. Naruto snickered. How many times do I gotta tell you they've got minds of their own? When they find one of us they can speak with, they'll talk your ears off if you let him. You're just lucky you can't talk back. Then they'd want you to help me out. Ino turned that thought over in her head. In the space of half an hour, she had gone from fairly normal girl to being able to hear animals facing down a demon and changing her perspective on Naruto. It was turning into a pretty surreal day. As soon as she completed that thought, the day got even stranger. The door to Naruto's room banged open, and a harried-looking Irika strode in, mindful of Naruto's secrets. The ebon shadow took flight, winging back towards the forest. Naruto, I finally found you. You've been putting it off long enough. Come with me. Naruto bristled, sensing something related to hard work. Putting what off? I'm a busy guy. Irika sensei, half the things I do today I won't remember tomorrow. What are you babbling about? Gee, I don't know. Does your mission ring a bell? The blonde boy squinted suspiciously at him. I thought that didn't start until after the Chunin exam was over. It doesn't. Irika sighed. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't go see the client and get an idea of what they want. It's the courteous thing to do, and it'll help you prepare for the mission instead of walking in there after the exam knowing nothing. Walking over to a cabinet near the door, Irika pulled out Naruto's jacket and tossed it onto the bed, where it landed with a heavy thud of weights. We should get going. You've only got a day before the finals start. Naruto didn't move for a second, and then he glanced at Ino. Want to come along? Something tells me two heads are better than one at breaking down a mission. Ino was surprised, but not much, at what came out of her mouth. Why not? In for a penny, in for a pound right now. Remember, Naruto, try to be courteous and listen for a while. Usually with private missions, the client wants to get something frustrating settled. Let them vent, and things will be easier to discuss. Sure, sensei, whatever you say. Irika wondered why the kid was being so nonchalant about a mission head jumped at just weeks ago. Everything about today had been strange from hearing Naruto was in the hospital to finding Ino with him, and why would he invite her along for something as private as a briefing? When Ino, walking in front of them, turned back and glanced at Naruto, he knew why. Hardly a normal look. It wasn't the typical way people looked at Naruto, as though they wanted to be anywhere else but facing him. Neither was it how she had once looked at Sasuke, like all the other girls, like they wanted to eat him alive. This was different. Ino's eyes had the look of someone much older, as if she'd grown years in a matter of days. Those are the eyes of a veteran. If not of battle, then of life. I don't know what she saw, but that's not fear or disgust. She's looking at him with its familiarity. If I didn't know them both so well, I'd say she'd known him his whole life instead of a few years since the academy, like an old friend or lover. He should have been suspicious. At the very least, something so odd should have concerned him, but Irika didn't feel there was anything to fear. The only reason it's strange is that Naruto has never experienced something like this. People like me understand him, but that's because we've been through the wars and the pain. We know the whole story and looked past it to see the person, not the demon. But those are all adults. Myself, Setsuna Hokagesama Jiraiya Ino, is from his generation. She and the others in his class are the ones hell have to live with in the long run. It may not be enough that they like or acknowledge him if none of them truly knows who and what he is, the things he's suffered. If he's ever to feel like a part of this village, they have to understand him. Maybe that's her job. Irika shook his head, smiling to himself. Listen to me, I sound like his father. Eve certainly invested a lot in him, maybe a little too much time to let him learn his own lessons for a while. If he needs you, he knows where to find you. He winked at Ino, causing the blonde girl to start in puzzlement. He's all yours. Before she could say anything, they reached the address. Irika had given Naruto a house about the size of Naruto's. As the three ninja walked up to the door, it opened for them. Sort of, get back here and finish your vegetables. I made them myself. Why do you think I don't want to eat them? A small blue and white streak attempted to leap out the door, but stopped short when Naruto stretched a hand out and snagged it. Once it stopped moving, the blur turned into a boy about Konohamaru's age, held running in place as he dangled from Naruto's hand. Unlike Konohamaru, this child had nothing good to say to Naruto. Who the hell are you? The blonde genin squinted suspiciously at Ikeda. Tenji, I oughta ask you the same thing. This looks like a normal house. What's a high-rank mission doing coming out of here? Irika was about to think of a lame excuse when the voice that had been yelling at Tenji got closer to the door and opened it wider. And don't come back, you. Oh, Irika-sensei. Naruto saw a girl come through the door, a frying pan in one hand, and bow to Irika. Even after she straightened, he couldn't quite remember her name. Those hair buns look familiar. Where have I seen her before? Then it hit him. I got it. You're the one who got her ass hooped in the preliminaries by the fangirl. Tenten's response was wordless. Then again, crowning him with the frying pan, said more than enough. Some future Hokage. Ino snorted. He can control everything but his mouth. Irika grinned. She definitely sounded like a wife haranguing her husband. I don't think you quite realize what you've gotten yourself into. Naruto, enjoy. Another adult came through the doorway, snagging Tenji from Naruto's hand and slinging the protesting child over his shoulder. Kazumasa patted his daughter on the head, feeling his way out onto the porch. Tenten, the truth is the truth. That's why we've been working on it, haven't we? There's no need to overreact. His daughter went bright red and she wasn't blushing. Overreact? He doesn't even know my name. All he knows is that I got humiliated. Him, the laughingstock of the village. Naruto shook his head. Look, I'm sorry, I suck with names. All I know is you hang around with Lee, so I had to think of where I knew you from. Don't take it so hard. Hinata lost, so did Sakura and Ino. They ain't ashamed to admit it. Why are you any different this time? Ino hit him with an elbow in the gut. I would have won if you hadn't cheered her on, and anyway I tied. Naruto bristled at being hit by two girls and not being able to respond. First you want me to be responsible and act all nice with Sakura, and now you don't make up your mind, will ya? Irika stepped in before the whole scene turned into a melee, and not a job briefing. Children, nobody's perfect. Let's all recognize that now. I believe you had something to tell Naruto. Ikigata-san, a mission quick on the uptake. Kazumasa ushered everyone inside the house, keeping a firm grip on his son. Sure thing, come on, and then can't be talking out here for such a high-rank mission. Ino chanced a look at Naruto as they entered the house and was surprised at how suspiciously he glanced at everything. He's probably got the right idea. Nothing about this setup feels right. Truth be told, she was suspicious too. Tenten was a genin, and apparently not a strong one. This mission probably wasn't her idea. That left the tall man with the bandages over his eyes. He was probably blind, but he walked like everyone Ino knew, like a shinobi ready to spring in any direction, so he ought to know Naruto's not ready for a mission alone. He's had a rank a mission, but that was with two more genin and a jounin. Someone his age was from Haruka's generation. Ino had never asked any adult about Naruto, but she gathered her parents and their friends knew far more than they let on about him. They had to know what he was and what he was capable of. You want to tempt him to do what you want by offering him the one thing you know he can't resist. Glory. What's your game? Thankfully Kazumasa ended the confusion quickly. Okay, you're tensed up. Easy already. I'm not sending you on a suicide run. Kazumasa picked Tenji up off his shoulder and plunked him down on the living room couch where he sat glaring at Naruto. This is my son, Tenten's younger brother. Ikeda to Tenji. It seems he's run your Irika-sensei into the ground, and it's the same for us. As you might have guessed, I'm blind for the moment and I can't really look after him. Tenten has her own life and my wife is an UMBU member, so she's always on call. It's not the best way to raise a kid. If anything, Naruto's expression got even harder. Ino winced to herself. Head better not be saying what I think he's saying. Naruto isn't one to take disappointment lightly. When Naruto did respond, his voice was disturbingly quiet. He didn't have the force of his mother with that tone, but Ino knew he was just as serious. Let me get this straight. You signed up for a high-rank mission. You got Irika-sensei to get my attention. With it, then he drags me out of a hospital bed and all of this to tell me do you want a babysitter? His hands came together, violently colliding and forming his favorite seal. Within seconds, 5 Naruto clones had surrounded Tenji, and one was holding him by his feet upside down. I don't know why he's giving you a hard time, to tell the truth. I'm not sure I want to care. I got a life too, mister. I just spent 3 weeks training for what's gonna be a hardest fight with that Hyuga punk. I'm tired and wasted. I ain't got time to mess around with a little brat who doesn't take anything Seriously, hell, even Konohamaru's better to deal with. You want help with him? Get a nanny. Stop wasting my time. Taking the mission notice out of his jacket, Naruto handed it to Iruka. Sorry, sensei, I don't have time to waste on dumb practical jokes. I'm out of here. Ino got up too, but slowly, not wanting to cause a scene. I can't believe there are still people who can't see. He just wants to be a normal, accepted part of this place. Why can't they deal with him normally and stop playing stupid jokes on him? They got halfway to the door, ignoring Iruka's protests, until one sentence from Kazumasa stopped Naruto in his tracks. You're just like your mother. Naruto turned around slowly, and this time the anger in his eyes was obvious to everyone. Even Tenten started inching towards the other end of the couch. What did you just say? Uzumaki Haruka, one of the first women to achieve high rank within the Umbu, famous for never taking crap from anyone. Whether it was the richest client or the Hokage himself, what's it to you? Kazumasa slumped back against his seat. She was my commander. Naruto searched his mind for where he'd seen Tenten's father before. Wait a minute, you're the master of blades, the one who was always getting drunk and whining about not being able to date Misawa. Tenko the blind Jounin grinned. That I corrected with your mother's help when she sacrificed herself to hold off the Nine Tails and ordered the rest of the team to stay behind. That sealed the deal. For Tenten's mom and I, we owe her big for that, and many other reasons. Naruto bristled at the older man's relaxed tone. So why are you screwing around with me? How else was I supposed to get you to come here when you didn't even know who we were? Come here for what? Reminisce for old time's sake. Kazumasa waved a hand in the air in a manner of speaking. I've been keeping something for you. Consider it a little bit of payback to your mother. Come with me. The blind man still knew how to get around his house and strode to the back, followed by Tenten, Tenji, Iruka, Naruto, and Ino. Before long they stepped through a sliding door and into a decent-sized dojo, weapons of all kinds securely strapped into racks on the walls. Walking to the very back of the room, Kazumasa grabbed a small ring set into the ceiling and pulled. As he did so, a hidden weapon rack came down, revealing 4 straight blades. Umbu weapons. Taking the sword on the very top, he walked back and handed it to Naruto. As Naruto took the weapon, he heard a faint rattle from within the scabbard. I want to use swords, but I'm pretty sure they aren't supposed to rattle. You're supposed to just pull him out and start hacking. Kazumasa bowed his head. This particular sword is no longer fit for combat. It's something I deeply regret, but was unable to do anything about. Naruto regarded the weapon in his hands, suspiciously squinting at the well-polished lacquer sheath. What are you trying to say? That was Haruka's sword when the rest of the team went out to find her after the battle. It was beside her in pieces, along with the bodies of 4 large wolves. I took the pieces home with me for safekeeping. Now it's yours. Naruto looked down at the sword and pulled it out. Where the scabbard was more than a foot long, the blade he removed was barely half that length. The rest snapped off and still inside the sheath. The blade was bright and apparently still sharp. On the very bottom nearest the hilt, 2 characters were engraved. The blonde boy squinted down at them. Suzaku. Kazumasa scratched the back of his head. A little chagrin. Chalk that up to youth. When you're young and tough, you think you're invincible, you know everything. When our team was formed, we all got new blades and we called ourselves the Shijintai 4 God Squad. Your mother was Suzaku, I was Sarayu, Tenten's mother was Genbu, and our medic Kuriko was Bayako. The names were carved into our blades. Naruto nodded his head up at the hidden weapon rack. You've got 3 more Umbu swords up there. Don't tell me those are the other ones from your team. Good. Guess when Haruka died, it was our wake-up call. We weren't kids anymore, nor were we as tough as we all thought. The next day, we went back to our old weapons and stored away the Shurjin blades. It wasn't anything noble or wise. We just didn't want to be reminded that our swords were whole because we hadn't fought. Naruto hefted the broken sword in his hand and then sheathed it, looking over at the master of blades. Why take it so hard? If you'd fought, you'd be as dead as my mom is. I don't know why she did it alone, but I can guess she wanted her teammates to carry on, not waste your lives on a battle you couldn't win. I doubt agonizing over it was what she wanted you to do with the rest of your life. I suppose I try not to think about it too much, hence the rack in the ceiling. Tenten knew better than to believe that coming from either of her parents she had a different perspective on the sword. Okay, princess, you've mastered the art of the throwing needle. Now I think it's time you learned something about blades. Her father had said that to her one day years ago as they sat in the same dojo. When Shed looked around, it had called out to her, something precious makes you strong fighting for it. That is, they always say that to us at the academy. The scabbard had looked exactly the same then as it had when her father gave it to Naruto, immaculately polished, lovingly placed on the highest weapon rack in the room for her parents to devote so much time to maintaining it. The sword had to be precious to them. I want to learn how to use that one. Kazumasa followed his daughter's eyes until he saw the sword she meant and went white as a sheet. His voice sounded strangled as he spoke again. Sorry, Tenten, any sword, but that one. Why, it must be powerful if you're always taking such good care of it. If I'm ever going to become as strong as Tsunade, shouldn't I master strong weapons? She had never forgotten what happened in that instant. It was one of the only times her father had ever become truly angry at her. Cold Precision showed in his eyes what her mother said happened when he became the master of blades and warning you daughter, it's a closed subject, don't ever ask me again cowed. She had simply asked to learn how to throw kunai. Kazumasa had calmed down. But he had never spoken of the sword again, at least not within sight of her. Later that day Tenko had cornered him about the incident, not knowing their daughter had crept into earshot. You didn't have to bite her head off just because you have survivors. Guilt, why do we even have the swords there if they're such a source of shame? You know kids, they have a knack for finding just the thing you didn't want them to see. Doesn't matter if you lock it in a safe or up in a closet, they'll get to it. I figured putting them in plain sight would throw them off the trail. Tenko sounded exasperated. Throw Tenten off the trail? You promised her you would teach her every weapon style known to man. Why wouldn't she ask to use the sword? All right, leave off already. Ill. Store it away somewhere safe so we can return it when the time comes. Tenten blinked at that. Return it? Who did they borrow it from? Her mother responded, a bitter tone to her voice. If it ever does. I saw him today. You know the children were teasing him again. All of the usual things. Why he has no parents, his clothes, everything. So much for the third's orders. People found plenty of ways to get around them and pass down their fears, even if the children don't know why they fear him. Then why has he let this happened? He should have known it would unless someone was there to protect the child. Orders, he said, so everyone would be reminded of what they owed him. That, Tenko snorted, is going to be one big unpaid debt by the time he becomes an adult. Do they want to make him become a missing nin? Wasn't it enough that we lost our best and brightest in that fight? Now they'd like to banish the one who bears the greatest burden from it. Kazumasa chuckled. You have to admit that would suit them just fine, but he's stubborn like his parents. He won't break much anyway. How can you be so cavalier about this? We asked the third if we could have him, the master of blades said, and he said no. We could ask today, we could ask tomorrow, and every day for a year, and the answer would be the same. All we can do is live with it and hope for the best. That's not much consolation. Hey, you want consolation? There are other ways to get it, not while the children are awake. Silio. Sure, rain on my parade. The idea intrigued Tenten. Appealing to her romantic side or to the part of some girls that is attracted to outcasts and riffraff. There was the slight problem of not knowing the boy's name, but to a young girl that was no big deal. Fantasy hardly requires a good knowledge of facts. It had captivated her ever since she had wondered if she could be the one to bring such a tragic figure in from the cold and earn respect for reminding everyone what a hero he was. Certainly the boy would appreciate it too on the days when people teased her for her hairstyle or her clothes or any number of things lame jutsu included. It was a nice way to get back at the popular girls in her head. As she got older, Tenten figured it would be a good idea to at least find out who her fantasy charity case really was. After a little research around the village, she had settled on Sasuke as her target. After all, he had no parents, he wore the same clothes every day, and there was this subtle sense about him that he was dangerous just like his brother. It was a perfect fit. If you disregarded the fact that Sasuke never got teased so much for that little fantasy, she said to herself, now looking at Naruto, why had she never considered him before? Ino obviously had, or she wouldn't be here now. A little voice in her head said it for her. You didn't want to, you wanted someone popular who could make people stop bugging you. How was she different from any of the airheads who chased Sasuke? He wouldn't return there. Affection. Sakura was on his team constantly, trying to get through to him, and even she got no love time to move on. Girl, if Ino, the most domineering girl in the village, could get in good with Naruto, she wouldn't have a problem. Naruto was annoying, and his mouth was only slightly cleaner than a sailor's, but he was tough. Tenten had seen that much for herself in the Forest of Death. He turned 3-on-1 into a 1-on-1 matchup without any help. Then not only had Naruto handled Kiba with several instant counters, had also done the unthinkable. Face down Niji without flinching. Nobody did that. Even Geizensei had moments when he felt unnerved by the Hyuga prodigy. Had she really missed something? Tenten pondered it while looking at Naruto again. There really were things about him you could overlook if you didn't see Naruto up close, straight in the eye when he had gotten angry at her father. His eyes had changed. It wasn't the same thing she'd seen Kazumasa do that was human promising. A single moment of pain that would finish you. Naruto's eyes were like a wounded animal's, or something worse, eyes that could deliver an eternity of suffering without blinking, because they had already seen it firsthand. But he hadn't done that, not because Naruto couldn't, because he wouldn't. How was that even possible for someone to go through humiliation, loneliness, sorrow, and everything else on the emotional spectrum and not come out homicidal? Was unbelievable. The kind of mental strength it must have taken to do that was Sanin worthy, the kind of thing shed aspired to, so she could become like Tsunade, and that Eve always failed at more than she wanted, love or popularity. Tenten had always wanted to be strong. You didn't get many strong female role models in this culture, and girls weren't often seen in positions of power among the shinobi until they got old. She could count on her fingers the women who'd done it at a young age. Tsunade, Tenko, Korone, and Uzumaki. Haruka, and when she had met someone who had similar strength and could show her what she had to do, she'd hit him with a frying pan. He did deserve it, though. Naruto was definitely worthy of her attention. If she could figure out what he saw in Ino, there would be time to find out if that led to other things later, especially if her father managed to tempt him into taking the babysitting job. Kazumasa looked like he was ready to do just that. Now understand something, this is not what I was going to pay you for taking on the job. It's completely different. I know you don't have time to do it every day, so we'll propose a compromise. Most of the time Tenji isn't that big a handful, we can control him just fine, but there's gonna be days when I'm not around, Ten's out and Tenko's not available, or there might be times when he's just making us all pissed. I'd like to be able to call on you then and see if you can't connect with him. Naruto got straight to the point. So if the sword ain't my payment for being your panic button, what is? I'm sure you've heard Ten is a master of throwing weapons. She can hit a target 100 times in 100 throws. That isn't innate nor a bloodline limit. It came out of special techniques and training I devised as a younger man. I can give you the same accuracy with more weapons than you might think. The blonde boy's answer left Ten fuming when she heard it. Sorry, not interested as much as she wanted to learn about strength from him. Ten was a little tired of having her skills put down. Why? Because I got my ass hooped using them. They're not good enough for you to learn. He turned his eyes on her, and even though he wasn't angry, she quickly shut her mouth. Naruto stared at Ten for a moment and then back at his mother's sword. It ain't that what you do with your weapon throwing and those scrolls, that's family business, something you and your dad share. I ain't butting in. What are you talking about? Ten heard the sword rattle as Naruto tightened his grip on it. Don't ask me to explain. I'm not good at that. Maybe I'm just weird, but it seems to me this kind of thing, special techniques, things only your family knows, learning together is what keeps people together, keeps them feeling like family. Up until a month or so ago, I never had that. When it happens for me, I don't exactly feel like having anybody else around. It's special to me, and I can't just be taking that away from you. Maybe you don't feel the same cause you've had it all along, but you ain't getting me to bust in where I don't belong. When his daughter failed to respond, Kazumasa spoke for her. Then what can I give you to make this deal work? Naruto lifted the sword and put it back in the blind man's hands. You want to do something for me? Then find somebody to make this sword usable again and teach me how to use it. Kazumasa regarded the broken weapon grimly. You should know that the blade can't be fully repaired. If it could, I would have done it years ago. The best I can do is sharpen the rest and make it a wakizashi or kodachi. Naruto shrugged. That's fine. I get the feeling the Umbu wouldn't be too happy to see me carrying around a full blade anyway. Now do you think you can handle my son? Naruto rolled his eyes and vanished before Tenji could realize he was there. The little boy was upside down again, Naruto holding him by the ankles. Ten's younger brother protested loudly. All the blood's rushing to my head. Good, there'll actually be something in there for once. Tenji squirmed, but Naruto showed no signs of letting him go. Let me up. Why should I? Tenji's only reply was to squirm even harder. It didn't help. Finally, Naruto raised the boy's eyes to meet his own. When you learn to treat people with respect and not take advantage of your dad and your sister ill-treat you normally, until then you're staying like this every time I see you. That's gonna happen anytime your sister or your dad thinks your punk ass is being a pain, which would be every day if you keep at it. So go ahead, be a brat. I look forward to it. Looking over at Kazumasa, he shrugged. That answer your question looks like a deal to me. Iruka smiled as he watched Naruto and Kazumasa shake on the deal. That was one of his students he no longer had to worry about. But what about the others? So are we clear? You work here when you have the time and you're not on call unless you've told me in advance you'll be available. I can always find temporary help, but so help me skip town without telling me and I will cut you off. Uzumaki Setsuna looked down at her newest employee awaiting her answer. Sakura knew better than to keep her new sensei waiting. Yes, ma'am. Her moment of seriousness over Setsuna waved off the formality and slouched back in her chair. Come on, just call me Setsuna sensei. I ain't one to talk about manners. This is a small operation. It'll be you, me, Slinger, Mickey, and maybe some occasional help if we can make a profit to afford just like a normal semi-functional family. Everyone pulls their weight. Eve never done anything like this before. How? Well, I know what to do. Setsuna chuckled. Oh, you'll learn. According to that Iruka guy, you're a smart cookie. You'll get the hang of it right quick. Now mind you, we do things a little differently here. As you've noticed, we have 3 waitresses to cover a dining room that can seat more than 100 people. Obviously, the numbers don't add up right, so how do we serve the customers? Setsuna waved Mickey over, and the red-headed waitress placed a small bundle on the table in front of Sakura. When the pink-haired girl opened it, she found a uniform like the one Mickey and Slinger wore, along with several heavy metal weights and an oversized pair of shoes. You aren't serving customers quite yet. The pace would make you keel over in a day or so. Instead, you're going to come in here before we open up and train. Then when we open, you'll observe how Mickey and I go about things. We didn't advertise the grand opening much, so the 2 of us can handle the crowd until you're ready to help out. Train in what? Isn't it just balancing a tray and getting it to the table quickly? Sakura Setsuna sighed. You got a lot to learn. Slinger, start us off on a practice run. And don't cook anything this time. Naruto and his pals aren't around to eat the leftovers. Your funeral boss. Setsuna snorted as she tied a headband around her forehead, holding her hair back. Please, you've never beaten me at this, and your lazy ass never will. Mickey, let's get it on. Been too long since we gave Slinger, a challenge, the other waitress smiled, preparing herself with a headband as well. Sakura watched puzzled as all hell broke loose. Slinger Ozaki bellowed a war cry as he dashed into the kitchen. Seconds later, a bowl came soaring out of the window between Slinger's domain and the dining room. Pork ramen heavy soup. Table 7. Setsuna smirked and bowed to Mickey. Show the new girl how it's done. Of course. The pink-haired girl's eyes shot open as Mickey leaped into the air, grabbing onto a beam and swinging herself around it. After a circle or two, she used her momentum to soar off the wooden support. The petite waitress intercepted Slinger's bowl in midair, catching it in one hand and delicately altering her course by bouncing off another roof beam. Mickey landed with nary a sound by table 7. The water inside the bowl barely disturbed. Sakura's jaw dropped. How she's so. Setsuna looked amused, clumsy on the ground, maybe in the air. There's nobody I trust more than Mickey. She feels she can be free up there, and I ain't one to mess with success. Get the point now? What you're gonna be training in? We give the customer thrills, chills, and no spills. Exactly what a girl with brains but little brawn needs to balance herself out. But I can jump. Every academy student has to be able to do that kind of acrobatics just to graduate. Slinger interrupted Sakura's complaint with another order: miso ramen chicken teriyaki bowl and an extra pot of rice on the side. Table 39. Hang on a second, I'll be right back. This time Setsuna shot into the air, but instead of going straight up to the airborne dishes as Mickey had, Naruto's aunt began to twist in midair as she drew closer to the target. Setsuna's hands and feel began to glow. Sakura gasped, startled. Chakra, but I thought she wasn't a shinobi. Snagging the ramen bowl in one hand and the teriyaki bowl in the other, Setsuna spun again and lashed a foot out at the little metal pot. Slinger had put the rice in, catching it with her chakra and hurling it above her, landing beside table 39. Setsuna quickly set the dishes in her hands down on the table and then held her right hand out. A second later, the metal pot plopped down into her hand undisturbed. Still think you know it all, Missy? Slinger, time out. The rookie needs a lesson. Sakura slumped into a nearby chair, wondering what she'd gotten herself into. Setsuna approached after laying down the rice pot, patting the pink-haired girl's shoulder in sympathy. I ain't gonna lie, Sakura, this is not an easy job to learn. It wasn't for me, and it wasn't for Mickey either. Hell, Slinger's got it tough too. His tosses have to be spot on for us to do anything with them. As for us, we have plenty of concerns: body control, chakra control, peripheral vision, aerodynamics, geometry, timing, even gravity. But above anything else, we gotta have speed. If we drop the ball, someone goes hungry longer than he should. That's bad for business. Hey Race, your first lesson. Shinobi aren't the only ones who take pride in their jobs. If you think you're gonna wuss out on me, then leave now. If you're staying, then it's time for lesson 2. Put on your uniform and the shoes and